Luo Chenxi, a young man, was seen in a room as he had just woken up and looked exhausted and wondered where he was. As he was pulling back the covers on the bed to try to get out of bed, and suddenly there was a young girl under the covers greeting him. The young girl inquired about his favor. When Chenxi asked where he was, the girl replied that she was in her room. Chenxi told her to change his clothes. At that moment, Luo Chenxi realized that the girl seemed to have saved him. A week ago. The young girl was seen running away from the pursuit of several men who tried to have sexual intercourse and harassed her. However, the princess secretly prayed to goddess Freya for someone to come and save her. Then they heard a noise and could see the Simurgh, the lord of the storm, was victorious, and he was getting ready to take the princess away. However, someone among them notices that the Simurgh is dead, and they then realize that someone is nearby. And maybe he was the one who killed the Simurgh. The youths then planned to take the princess away, and someone would be waiting to fight Luo Chenxi. When a young man named Luo Chenxi suddenly appeared in front of them, the princess hoped that he would help her during that time. However, Luo Chenxi stopped them and used magic to discipline them so they wouldn't try to kidnap the princess again. But the princess was surprised by Luo Chenxi's strength and ferocity. Luo then ordered the princess to stand up and let them go. But when he tried to do so, he experienced discomfort in his body. So Luo Chenxi kindly offered to give him a handkerchief. The princess thanked him for saving her, and Luo Chenxi guessed from the looks of it that he probably came from a rich family. He advised the princess not to forget to repay her for what she had done. He held the princess in his arms while advising her to try to endure the pain as there was still a wound on her leg. But the princess told him that she wasn't mentally prepared for it. Situation when they reached near the river, the princess replied that she didn't show enough concern for the girls. Luo Chenxi started to rub her leg where she felt pain. As she did so, the princess pondered how Chenxi got her very unusual black hair, and speculated that he might be a hero from another world. The princess introduced herself as Anna. She then asked Luo Chenxi what her name was, and he gave it to her as they spoke aggressively. Given the circumstances, Chenxi then assured him that he would accompany her home. But while they were gone, Anna couldn't help but wonder if the black-haired Chenxi was the new hero. In response to his joy at learning that there are heroes in the world, he points out that he never raised the subject of being a hero, as they travel across the world. Anna then explained that apart from being a hero summoned from another world, the Hero Lord was also one of the 7 demigod powerhouses in the world. When Chenxi asked Anna if she could use magic, they thought he might be able to escape using the magic sealing stone, so they sealed the magic so only the key could be used to open it. Luo Chenxi also considered using the opportunity she had to learn more about him. Then Anna told him that he could use magic. But they have sealed it, so only the key can release it, because they were afraid that he would run away because of the magic sealing stone. When Chenxi asked Anna where the Imperial Night Fort was, Anna decided not to bother Chenxi any longer, and replied that she didn't really know Anna. Then asked him to take him to the mountain base, so he could consider how to find them to send troops to suppress them. Then a young man is seen with the man who owns him harassing Anna, and they told him how strong he is to kill monsters. They need an army with at least an ultra power class to take them down. The Imperial Knights were already in the area, and there were around 20 of them. He was surprised and initially believed Chenxi, who was known as a hero from the distant monastic country, Altiel, had knowledge of the kidnapping of the young princess, which he didn't want to happen. Lord was right. Then he instructed his men to go and meet the knights. The Empire said that he would look for Chenxi and take the young princess from him before they next met. After finding him, Chenxi decided to fight him. When he used ultra-classic attribute detection magic, the conclusion that Chenxi doesn't seem like an easy opponent to beat. But when Chenxi asked the crew to give him the key to the neck pad, he refused to bang the lock to show his refusal and told Chenxi to show him where the princess was. Chenxi also learned that Anna was a royal princess, which surprised him because it was the first day of his crossing. Then a lord informed Luo Chenxi that Anna had been chosen as a vital component in his plan to overthrow the empire, and that Chenxi had to join his gang because he had promised her a sizable amount of money. Despite the fact that Anna troubled him, Chenxi turned down the offer because she believed that he was still much better than a true lord. but Lord looked very angry because Chenchi refused his offer. So he moves to kill Chenchi and warns Chenchi to behave as he still thinks of him as a young and inexperienced boy. But if Chenchi could hand over the princess to him, Lord Shrew would leave it intact. So the Lord's true freeze attack to prevent him from moving. When they stop around the mountain looking for the princess, they believe may be in danger. Several youths were seen riding on the god's horses and forced to kneel before Luo Chenxi, when he beats her to get her to hand over the keys. However, a lord questioned Chenxi's strength and power, about how a single punch had injured him who was at the peak of the ultra class. Then when Chenxi thought back on Anna's words, where it is stated that he is someone who is favored by that world, and only he is able to defeat him, he came to an illusory conclusion, that truth should die. When Chenxi convinced Anna that she would not leave her, she was left alone on the mountain. He wondered where he had gone. When monsters suddenly appear, Anna fled in fear, but Luo Chenxi quickly arrived and killed him with her windblade power, after asking Anna if she would benefit from running away. When he doesn't get enough rest, she instructed him to stand up straight and turn his neck so he could help her unseal her magic. And he opened it as the magic sealing stone fell from his neck. He was relieved to see that the seal had been broken. After seeing a few elemental spirits playing with Luo Chenxi, he became curious as to why they were so friendly towards him. He asked Chenxi about her injuries in hopes that they weren't too bad, but he revealed that it had hurt him deeply. Anna then tells him that she hates bad people and the loopholes she does. Anna was surprised that her crack could be so kind to her, and begged Luo Chenxi to forgive her, because he previously doubted Chenxi, then gives him a drink and says he found it while searching the lockmaster's body, and that will treat the condition, so he has to drink it. Anna begged Chenxi to forgive her because she had previously questioned her, and he was surprised that she could be so kind to him. When the youths looking for Anna's daughter arrive, they confront Chenxi and demand that she stop spending time with their daughter. One of the Hulk King's bodyguards later stated that the princess must be protected until death. Whenever he was present, he told the princess to follow him home, because the king was very concerned about him. But Anna told the guards not to be rude to Luo Chenxi, because Luo Chenxi was his savior, to which Hulk replied that he would obey Luo Chenxi, then tried to run away because he was sure the princess was safe to avoid further trouble. When Chenxi realized that she had fought Lord Shrew, and that her strength was exhausted, she immediately took the opportunity to fly to tell Anna that she was the one who put her in a coma, and that what he had come to that world for was still unresolved. When he caught up with her, he corrected Anna. She said she was the most favored party. Chenxi advised him that if he wanted to reward her, he should try and do something practical for her. As a gift daughter, Anna kissed him, and then asked him if he would believe her. But Luo Chenxi was preoccupied with the thought that when she first met Anna, she had called herself a descendant of a goddess. But why would a goddess be attracted to immortals? As Anna had just done when Anna realized what she wanted, he advised her to allow him to prove it. He was in his future actions, but Luo Chenxi was surprised that Anna realized what he was contemplating secretly. So Anna explains that even though she is physically present in her body and acting as a person, she is actually fast asleep inside of him for unknown reasons. That because of the placement of Freya's tears which serve as conduits for magic power, as well as the fact that he had used up all of his magic power and found himself unconscious. Luo Chenxi had to be careful the next time she found herself in this situation. However, Anna hoped to actually meet Chenxi. Then returning to reality, Luo Chenxi asked Anna about bringing her to her room and why they were sleeping half naked. However, Anna took advantage of the opportunity to get some clothes for Chenxi to change into later. Chapter 4. Someone came to deliver the clothes to Chenxi. The girl came in revealing clothes and shyly showed her chest for Chenxi. The girl told Luo Chenxi to let him know if she needed anything, and Luo Chenxi seemed to notice that he had come to take care of her. But the woman denied that Anna had not told her to do this. Instead, she was dressed that way, because that was what noble lords liked. But Luo Chenxi told her to wait outside since she didn't need any help and she would wash herself. And the lady then agreed and told him that if she needed anything, he must call him. Then while he was taking a bath, he observed that the princess still harbored some rationality. After taking a shower, Luo Chenxi changed her clothes. Anna met him on the street and greeted him, asking after his health. Luo Chenxi asked what he had done for her and how long she had been unconscious. Anna replied that she had taken care of him personally for 3 days. He didn't realize, which made Chenxi believe that Freya had recovered her magic power, and that recharging has no effect. Anna then told Luo Chenxi that she would receive the promised reward through another channel, and that his father wanted to summon the emperor and Luo Chenxi. Luo Chenxi initially looked taken aback by the mention, because he didn't want to embarrass himself. But he then remembered that he had previously saved Anna's life, so there should be no problem with seeing the emperor, so he agreed to go and meet the emperor. People claimed that Chenxi had saved Anna's life when he arrived at the imperial palace and remembered that he had a rare black hair color. They wondered what kind of connection he had to being a hero. However, Luo Chenxi went to show respect to the emperor. The emperor then told Luo Chenxi that Anna had told him about Chenxi, and that she not only saved her daughter's life, but had also caught the imperial criminals, apart from killing the beast and Lua Simurg in the mountains. As the emperor, he wanted to sincerely thank Chenxi by giving him 2 ring halls. One of them contained 20 million gold coins, and the other contained the remains of the beasts he had killed. Hulk interrupted Changxi when she asked for permission to accept the bestowal, telling her only one of their elders, a deserving Lord Paladin of Honor, and that Chenxi shouldn't be trusted because she might be related to those planning to kidnap the princess. The princess responds with funds back to the Hulk. Dan asks him why he's trying to imply he's a bad person. Hulk replied that he didn't see the corresponding strength in Chenxi, but he was afraid someone would have to claim credit for something they didn't contribute to the emperor. Then ordered Luo Chenxi to provide justification to help convince the masses. She was the one who questioned why the emperor winked at her. But then he told the king that he understood. What's the point, since he's ordered to know what to do about the matter? Hulk then suggested Luo Chenxi to put his hands on the spar magic. Luo Chenxi agreed with the advice, so he did it. But he didn't receive it backlash, leading people to believe that he was just an ordinary person with no magic. However, Hulk claimed Luo Chenxi resembled a thief who had tricked the Highness Princess with good flattery, so that he would judge Luo Chenxi's sins. He then moved towards Luo Chenxi to kill him. But at that moment, Luo Chenxi stopped him by using his bare fists, surprising the Hulk, and he punched the Hulk in the face, knocked the Hulk to the ground. Everyone in the room, including the king, was in awe of Luo Chenxi, and the king told Chenxi to choose the gift of his choice, because she was ready to give it to him. It was a reward for capturing the Empire's fugitives and killing magic beasts. But Chenxi said that she didn't need the gift. Then the king declared in front of the crowd that the Restinia Empire's first princess, Anna Minas Restinia, would be betrothed to Luo Chenxi, while Anna looked surprised by her father's statement. It was in the middle of the night when the emperor and his daughter were in the dining hall and were grappling with bits of steak. The emperor noticed from Chenxi's expression that he seemed to have something he wanted to tell her. Then Chenxi began to open up to the emperor about his thoughts, about why the emperor had chosen to betroth the emperor's daughter Anna to him. The emperor then explained to Luo Chenxi that he had done that for him, because his daughter noticed it. That's why it's possible. And that apart from that, Anna was not a young woman at the age of 13, especially considering how many noble sons vied for her attention. Yet Luo Chenxi didn't seem too interested in testing the offer, so he will try to find a way to break up the sham marriage. Anna, who had been watching Chenxi's expression, speculated that perhaps Luo Chenxi hated her. The emperor then inquired about Chenxi's relationship with the black-haired hero, to which Luo Chenxi replied that she didn't have any. The emperor then proceeded to ask to change his relationship with the Snow Moon Country family, which was founded by the former hero royal family member who had black hair. Luo Chenxi still replied that he didn't have any relation with them. The emperor then told Luo Chenxi not to worry about it, because he wasn't connected to any other power, and because Anna liked him, the two of them were able to get him, and got married without incident. Chenxi, however, tells the emperor that he thinks Anna is too young to make a hasty decision that will affect the rest of her life. After asking Anna and her sister Batsalia to forgive her and Luo Chenxi, the king made Luo Chenxi realize that he was aware that Chenxi and his daughter had shared the same bed. While Luo Chenxi was unconscious, the emperor went on to say that even though he had been a father for a long time, that day was the first time his daughter had expressed this much concern for a stranger of the opposite sex. The king gave Chenxi a month to get to know Anna before he makes a decision. When Anna got up to leave, she sat down on a chair alone outside. He met Chenxi, who said that the meaning of refilling the power of tears was by sleeping together naked to recharge magic energy. Chenxi thought that the person hiding inside her body should give a proper explanation. Then Anna asked Chenxi about how she decided. Has he thought about it? And Chenxi said that her father, who was an emperor, gave her a month to think. Luo Chenxi then questioned Anna's decision to save her using such desperate measures, but Anna assured him there was no need to worry, because Luo Chenxi should no longer sympathize with him for that reason alone. Anna really wished in her mind that Luo Chenxi would love her back the way she loved him. Dan promised Chenxi that he would definitely make her like him next month. But Luo Chenxi looked speechless for what Anna said. In the morning of the next day, he walked down the corridor of the house. He meets Anna, and she greets him while Anna happily accompanies him, and the two of them chat until the afternoon. And at night, Luo Chenxi heard a knock on her bedroom door. So he went to open the door, only for you to meet Anna at the door, who told him she felt like staying by Chenxi's side. Then Chenxi allowed it. However, Chenxi told Anna about the book she was reading. Luo Chenxi thought that learning about this world was far more important than getting involved in romantic affairs. Luo Chenxi then remembered about Goddess Freya, and she thought about how she was related to him. What does he have to do with Freya's tears in his body? Thanks to Freya's tears, she can master every kind of magic she has ever seen. What's more, he could even understand the method to replenish magic power. It's just that he doesn't understand the method yet. Then he heard a young girl's voice commenting on how amazing Chenxi's skills were, and that she doesn't need to chant to use magic. He praised Chenxi, who was extremely outstanding. The girl looked fascinated with Chenxi. So girl asked Luo Chenxi if she could teach him the way to do it. The young girl named Alice is an exchange student from the Gurandor Kingdom and the fourth princess of the Gurandor Kingdom. He asked Chenxi if she was willing to teach her magic since she didn't even need to chant, even since the instructions didn't exist. Incomparable to Luo Chenxi, and no one other than Chenxi could teach him. Luo Chenxi was stunned and replied that she couldn't do it. After thinking that Anna herself was quite troublesome, and if she was connected with other princesses, she could expect countless distractions from them. Alice then grabbed Luo Chenxi's clothes and asked why she couldn't do it. He also stated that he only wanted to learn from Chenxi. From the moment he laid eyes on her, Anna walked in just in time to ask Alice what she was trying to achieve with Luo Chenxi, and told him that Luo Chenxi's course for today was over, and that they should return home. Alice then turned and left with a sad face. Chenxi replied that Alice had only asked him to teach her magic, but had been refused. But he added that he would constantly watch her study in the library so that Alice could be a well-motivated child. The things that Luo Chenxi had to keep thinking about Princess Anna more, because they didn't just live together that long. But also his Luo Chenxi praised Anna. However, Anna told Mira not to talk more so she wouldn't speak carelessly after Mira told Luo Chenxi that she had brought her food and asked him to put it on the table. Chenxi instructs Anna to stop thinking about how she and Chenxi have been living together. During that time, Dan had worked really hard to get Luo Chenxi interested in him. Anna turned to Chenxi and asked if she would be free for 2 days, because he felt he needed to be a little more excited, and Luo Chenxi immediately replied that he wasn't planning anything. But Anna noticed something and asked Chenxi if something had happened between her and Mira while he was serving her food. Mira was nervous because she wanted to talk, but Luo Chenxi dismissed it, saying that because Anna was there with them. Did he see something happen? But Anna hoped he wouldn't act strange once again. On the day that Luo Chenxi and Anna had agreed to, Chenxi waited for a while before she finally saw Anna approaching. When Anna arrived, she apologized to Luo Chenxi for being late, because she has to get dressed and ask how her clothes look. Luo Chenxi then told him that the dress looked good on him. As they were leaving, Luo Chenxi asked Anna if she was sure no one would recognize her. Anna replied that with the exception of a small group of nobles, The majority of people are not aware of his appearance. He then asked Luo Chenxi if he could go with her to the nearest national celebration when the time came. So Chenxi explained that because they were together every day. Then Luo Chenxi realized that she wanted to give away the clothes she had bought, and Anna told him that since he was handsome, she would give it to him. After all, Luo Chenxi asked Anna where she was going. When they left, he was to let them go and shop for clothes first. Yet he knew in his mind that he had prepared an extremely detailed plan for Luo Chenxi. So he got someone to customize formal clothes for Luo Chenxi. When they were walking in the park, Anna thought that this Chenxi guy didn't understand women's hearts. He had clearly taken the initiative, but he didn't react in the slightest. Then Anna thought about what Mira had said to her if she had to quickly bring Luo Chenxi to the hotel. Then Chenxi asked Anna, "Does he remember how he was kidnapped?" But then some people appeared in front of them, which frightened Princess Anna. Whereupon the group leader said that their target was Princess Anna herself, and that if Chenxi was reasonable he should just hand over Princess Anna to them and they would naturally let her go. But Princess Anna, out of fear, remained close to Chenxi. And she hopes to be saved by him, which made Luo Chenxi reason that everyone in the royal capital was extremely brave, which was truly an uncommon type of bravery. Chenxi, who saw his expression, already knew who exactly the kidnapper was. Luo Chenxi also asked who had told them to come there. But the kidnapper told him to be quiet and hurry to hand over Princess Anna to them right away. Luo Chenxi was almost cut by the sword, but she managed to jump up and dodge the attack while carrying Anna, as a way to escape from them. But somehow a group of people decided to quickly follow them, because they told him that he shouldn't even think about running away from them, because the leader is a heavenly class mage. Then Chenxi found a safe place to land Princess Anna, as told her to wait for him there as he would be back with her in a little while. The Divine World's witch had discovered that Luo Chenxi had run into a house above, so he flew up to catch them. But before he could get there, Luo Chenxi had crossed him to leave and started fighting him. When the man challenges, then attacks him by smashing his power towards him and making the witch think that it is impossible for her to do so. Seeing a crushing person like Luo Chenxi besides Princess Anna, and how intelligence had nothing to speak of what had happened. As he pondered about Luo Chenxi, on the other hand he kept cracking his magister powers, overpowering him. And Luo Chenxi then went with Princess Anna safely to the palace. When they reached the palace, Mira asked if she was okay. But Anna's daughter only told her that she was tired and therefore going to rest. Then the emperor thought that it seemed like leaving Luo Chenxi to stay that Anna's side was the right choice, because the king was sure that there were traitors in the palace and among them, and those who dared to spoil his daughter's plans were really doomed to death. But the emperor then thanked Luo Chenxi, because he saved Anna. But he has some matters to attend to. So he needed to trouble Chenxi to send Anna back to rest. Luo Chenxi then went to see Princess Anna to check it out, and when she got there she knocked on the door. And Princess Anna asked who it was, and the answer was Luo Chenxi. Then he asked why Chenxi had come late to check on him. He then asked her to come in and he found that Anna was crying. So he asked her why she was crying, and she told him that she couldn't hide anything from him. Anna explained that she didn't know why she felt that way, because obviously he had returned to where his father and mother were. Ever since Anna saw that person today, Anna had nothing on her mind, apart from that pitch-black cell. Anna was suddenly filled with fear when she just woke up. If he didn't meet Luo Chenxi, he couldn't escape. Just thinking about it made his body start to tremble. Then Luo Chenxi rubbed Anna's head. Dan said that there was nothing he should be afraid of. As long as she was by his side, no one would be able to harm her. Hearing those words made Anna happy. He said whether Master Chenxi has started to like him. No matter how it sounds, it's no different from a love confession. But Chenxi then told him not to misunderstand, because he will only spend this 1 month with her. Then he went to sleep and say goodnight. He entered his room and lay down on his bed, when he suddenly heard a knock on his door, and wonder who it is. So he went to check who it was. Chenxi was surprised to find that it was Princess Anna who had asked him if they could sleep together. Others said one of the many things a protagonist should enjoy after transmigrating was the thigh pillow of a beautiful girl. So it feels like this. But why was Luo Chenxi the one who gave it to him? When Princess Anna woke up at that time, she wondered what she had done last night. Mira came and thought that Princess Anna had woken up, and he told Princess Anna to get out of the blanket. As he asked Princess Anna how comfortable she was sleeping in Lord Chenxi's room the night before. But Princess Anna felt embarrassed, which made Mira ask why she should be ashamed. Or maybe they already have something. So he thought so. Moreover, yesterday he looked not excited. As a father, he felt sorry for not being able to accompany him at that time. So he said that Luo Chenxi as a man should be able to learn how to be responsible. But Luo Chenxi replied that taking responsibility had never crossed her mind, assuming that they actually do that. He then asked if layoff wasn't good enough in his eyes. The emperor asked him if he really thought so, and Luo Chenxi thought that the emperor was a hard person to look up to. So he answered the emperor to think things over very carefully, since Anna was young and easily impulsive. So the emperor, by his decision, will have deep and enduring inflation in the future. Whereas the emperor said that was why he confidently handed her over to him, because he knew for a fact that Luo Chenxi was someone who would not let Anna go through difficult times. So that made Luo Chenxi think that he was like a playboy who seemed to be morally clean. The emperor then returned to formal topics. They told how he had been looking for Luo Chenxi the whole time, so that he even needed to tell her about something related to Anna, about the secret they have, one that was kept a secret from him since he was born, who happened to tell him before he could speak. That she was a saintess shocked the emperor. The king wondered how Luo Chenxi knew, so he asked Luo Chenxi how he knew. Luo Chenxi explained that in order to deal with the revived demon lords, the goddess could bestow divine power and allow the sacred diviner to summon heroes, and that the world could give birth to existences capable of confronting demon lords. Those who are the saints of the saints are the chosen ones, who are all women. They were so well suited to the divine power of the goddess that from the moment she rose from birth, she would receive the blessings of the goddess. Her explanation from Chenxi, which shocked the emperor. When he asked if it was Princess Anna, who told Luo Chenxi, who replied that she had a hunch the moment she realized it. That it was true that daughter Anna was a saintess, but he felt something was off. Because he knew Princess was definitely a little devil. Remembering how Princess Anna behaved, who usually cried a lot, which could be Freya's tears, it belongs to goddess Freya, and that with Princess Anna being able to replenish the magic crystal, which is also proof of being a saint. Chenxi thought that otherwise the emperor would not allow Princess Anna to marry a man of unknown origin, to which he later said that he had difficulty recognizing the emperor's meticulous plans, because it was all the emperor's scheme. Then he said it seemed Chenxi had understood what he meant, because that would save him from explaining himself. He then said that if Princess Anna continued to grow like that, then Luo Chenxi should also be aware of what her future would be like. However, Luo Chenxi did not understand what the emperor meant, which he was assuming if he was going to take a stand on the battlefield in the crusade against the demon lords. So the emperor said that he couldn't possibly know about the horrors of the battlefield, or how devastating a demon lord is, and that forbids heroes equipped with holy swords, because no one else can kill a demon lord except heroes, even though someone else might have the capacity to obliterate his body. But they had no way of destroying the demon king's soul in the truest sense of the word. But the power of the saints is definitely a terrible thing, because magic power is naturally hated by demons, which upon entering the battlefield, the same test became the target of the devil's predation. However, as long as that saint finally reached the age of 15, his internal strength would truly awaken, which was impossible for even the emperor to hide, because the holy throne of the monastery Altiol nation will definitely come to claim it, and that if he didn't send his daughter to the other side, it would definitely act in the name of saving the world. Yang will find it difficult to enter and exit to act as emperor. When the time came at that moment, Princess Anna entered too, to which he asked Chenxi if she knew about the Phasalia saintness of ice, to which he replied that he had seen it in a book for the last 2 days, because he was asking if she was the same saintess who was burnt to death by the Holy Throne, which he confirmed and said that it was his own sister, What happened 20 years ago because the same ice test was more famous than the hero he suddenly withdrew and chose to lie down for 3 years. By the time he returned to the Holy Throne, he had decided to sentence himself to death because he had carried a baby, who at that time was the child of him and the demon whale. That was how the devil humiliated the disciples of the goddess, where he was after being burned to death. The emperor then added that when the goddess's blessing came on the night Princess Anna, whose wife almost fell into mental turmoil, because he hoped that his daughter would never become a saint again, and that the only way they could avoid the situation was to quickly make Princess Anne empress before she turned 15. Which, however, is unlikely. They found another way, namely, Anna's daughter must marry someone in and behave as a wife, so that he can avoid the sacred test. In which Chen Shi then asked if what the emperor meant by that was having a pure saint to do, and pure things he found a strange condition. The emperor then said that he could see that Princess Anna really liked Chen Shi, but regardless, he valued Luo Chenshi's opinion on this matter, and that if Chen Shi didn't want to stay, then Princess Anna had no intention of forcing him to stay by her side. Luo Chenshi then said that he had promised Anna that he would accompany her until the National Day celebration, and that as for her decision regarding the matter of marriage, she would leave it to Luo Chenshi's decision. She left the palace, and the emperor watched her go, thinking it was obvious that someone would target Princess Anna during that period, which made him ask such a thing from him. But Luo Chenshi then asked the emperor to arrange a time for him, because he wanted to see the person who kidnapped Princess Anna before, which according to him with the surprise attack carried out in the streets 2 days ago. He thought it was not as simple as it seemed on the surface. Princess Anna was seen with Mira fussing over the sluggish Chen Shi. She thought that if she continued like that, then she would become a rock waiting for her husband. At that point, Ackerman walked in apologizing for what he had done, where he offended the princess in the main hall, and that he had taken the blame to heart, because he hopes Princess Anna can forgive him. Princess Anna then told him that he had been fooling his duties as a knight, and that he had not. He wanted to blame her. Seeing that Princess Anna had accepted his apology, he then said because Princess Anna understood his greeting very well, he wanted to offer her a sip of wine, and Mira told him that Princess Anna was not allowed to drink. He walked over and later said that since then, Ackerman probably didn't realize he was about to get drunk, but in any case, out of goodwill, that there shouldn't be any harm in drinking a little. All that everyone saw was that Princess Anna would take the wine. At that moment, Luo Chenshi came to his side, when he summoned a useless little girl. As usual, he then faced himself. At that time, Princess Anna looked worried because she was worried about Luo Chenshi. But Chenshi asked why he didn't just keep watching her, instead of interrupting them, where Hulk told Chenshi that without Princess Anna, no one would make a man like Luo Chenshi without any standing qualified to set his foot in the banquet, and that Luo Chenshi shouldn't feel like she could mess up the palace as she wanted, because daughter Anna thought about it a lot, but thanks she just took Hulk's words as babble that she better go. Hulk is whole for the moment when he sees that after all Hulk has seen him, so Hulk can go against their truth, as he wanted, because beating him to accept reality would reduce him somewhere, and it really made the Hulk go mad. And Layoff then arrived, confirming his Luo Chenshi was the Luo Chenshi he had heard about since he had only been back for a few days. Dan had heard a lot about Luo Chenshi from the nobles non-stop, so he introduced himself by name to Luo Chenshi. He offers a handshake, as he said he would love to make his acquaintance with Luo Chenshi. So Luo Chenshi then told him back that he wasn't like other people who used a superficial facade of goodwill, thus asking if Layoff wanted to say anything. He had to be honest about it. Then he thought that Layoff was clearly instigated by someone to deliberately cause trouble, and therefore guessed that Layoff might be behind his defense. He said to Luo Chenshi that he didn't know what kind of tension existed between Chenshi and him, but he wanted to apologize to Princess Anna and asked Chenshi if she wanted to make things difficult for everyone. If he instructed her, and Luo Chenshi countered by saying that giving Princess Anna wine was naturally out of respect, as far as he's concerned. But when Layoff proposes toast to daughter Anna, and daughter Anna refused him, so he said that Ackerman would then impose his will on Anna by troubling her with things he was against, and by such actions he understood that Layoff was being disrespectful to us by his superiors. There's no problem with that. Then he went and said that Luo Chenshi had a lot to say. With a cup of wine he reacted, and she then told him that Ackerman suddenly became a knight, and nothing gives him the right to talk about Anna's daughter. So he said Hulk should show Ackerman that way to the door. If he's sensible enough, then bothering Princess Anna. He asked if Chenxi's position was big enough to put her on equal footing with Princess Anna, which made Ackerman too assertive from him. That with the way Luo Chenxi spoke as she drew closer to him while pointing to his nose. He could hear her say that relying on Father Paladin and Noble's help meant that Chenxi could act harshly there. He then realized that it was true that Ackerman was the protagonist of the banquet. But ask Li if he has forgotten the host he was conceived with and who was given to him that whole day. The Emperor then arrived at the place where Hulk the Ackerman and Chenxi were. He asked what they were doing, when they should be at the banquet, and because of that he lied that they just had a conversation, and they will soon join. He nodded at the banquet, because they pretended not to fight. Then Princess Anna appeared secretly to Luo Chenxi, telling him that Ackerman would definitely be hostile to Luo Chenxi. So he told her to take the opportunity to use it as an excuse to retaliate. But Luo Chenxi asked him what that meant to him, where Princess Anna didn't know what else to say. However, Chenxi asked him to come with her. And as they continued on their way, Luo Chenxi told Anna that she was the princess of the Restinian Empire who would become the empress in the future. That Hulk and the others are there for their people, and by facing them, one must have the attitude necessary to face their people. And also validate their behavior, which will only make them push for more. Because if he didn't want to find himself crying tears of regret alone, he must have the consciousness of a ruler. Where daughter Anna said she understood, he got every pattern of Luo Chenxi's words, because he was surprised by the same person. Didn't bother with such troublesome things before, now suddenly doing such a thing. So he thought maybe his opinion of her had started to change too much, for him to change to her while he was educating her on some important matters. However, Chenxi corrected daughter Anna not to laugh anymore, as she lectured her on something very important. It was for the last few moments where Princess Anna convinced him to keep every word he said in his life, and will always remember it. Then remember it. Then Luo Chenxi drank a cup of coffee, which surprises daughter Anna and tells her that the drink is what she just drank. As he then countered that Chenxi actually gave him an indirect kiss. Instead, Chenxi told him the coffee was too sweet. Then Princess Anna used the opportunity to ask Chenxi if she could sleep in Luo Chenxi's room. But Chenxi told him he could just let it go without a second thought. If he doesn't fall asleep at night, and asks if falling asleep should be developed into a doable habit for that. And that made Princess Anna angry, because he had to call Luo Chenxi an idiot. At night in the dungeon, a masculine man in chains is seen when he tells Layoff that she already knew that he would come to look for her, because that place couldn't. It might be the end for him, which Layoff later confirmed, that he had come to look for her, when he couldn't possibly leave someone as a man with a useful role to stay there indefinitely, but afraid to tell the man that the man has disguised the places. He thought that the less people who knew about the place, the better, but think that this is not the right time yet. But he knew that sooner or later he would personally slaughter Chenxi in blood, and he will be able to do it ruthlessly. Luo Chenxi was sitting thinking about killing a kidnapper in the dungeon. He then assumed that it was a coincidence, where the kidnapper was killed just as he wanted to interrogate him. At that moment, Alice saw as she peeked into the room where Luo Chenxi was, where she called him while he was walking. However, Luo Chenxi told him that he had to attend class. Skipping class is not a good habit. Alice replied that her first course was a practical combat class, which she didn't need to attend. And if Luo Chenxi came to teach a certain someone at practical combat, that person would definitely be delighted. As she smiled, looking at him. But Luo Chenxi said that then the practical combat class would be no different from a game of hide-and-seek, as he asked Alice not to reappear in his field of vision for some time, and if possible, forever. Where did Alice come down from when she heard what Luo Chenxi said? Which prompted him to ask if it was true that he was Princess Anna's fiancé, which was something he had heard from other people, even if they don't say it right away. However, the news spread, but in private, the words seemed to be true, as Fred himself said. Luo Chenxi then said he shouldn't blindly believe anything he heard from others, to which he replied that he never believed rumors, Yang had thought that Luo Chenxi was trying to explain everything to him. Alice then said that if Chenxi would teach her magic, that it could be possible that Dai will marry him too. Young Chenxi wanted to know if that was the trait of all princesses, because they all want to marry him. He then said it would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, as she swore in the name of the fourth princess of the Desert Kingdom, and that she would not go back on her word, and that if she were to become his wife, her father the emperor would definitely agree with them, where she told him to forget what he just said, that he couldn't ignore it. From the moment Ackerman arrived and told Luo Chenxi that he has something to discuss with him, Chengxi became angry that Alice was watching him. Dan asked why he was so aggressive towards Ackerman, because he remembered he was the commander of the night, and whatever came was definitely not good. So he thought if there was enmity between him, because his head heard the power of the night commander. The Empire has reached the Ultra level, the class where she told him he could hide for a moment, but not for life. When he told Alice not to overthink anything, that battle course had ended, so Alice had to return to attend her classes. Then Alice started to fight. Why did Chenxi come looking for him that time? He wondered what he was doing behind the door, so he told Chenxi that he would go with her. But Luo Chenxi then told him not to cause trouble, because they're going to town, and that whatever happened was out of his will. Then Ackerman Hulk arrived and asked if Chengxi knew why he came looking for her, and Luo Chenxi answered him that he did it because of something related to the banquet, in which he called Ackerman a shallow person. Meanwhile, Ackerman replied that by confronting Princess Anna and so many nobles who had insulted her honor, he never stopped opening his mouth about the shallowness that Luo Chenxi then said that if only by humiliating Princess Anna. That's what Ackerman considers to be his own honor. That daughter Anna will then give him the punishment he deserves for his behavior sooner or later. This furious Ackerman as he pulled out his sword and pointed at Chenxi. As he said that Chenxi shouldn't depend on his relationship with Princess Anna to do whatever he wants to do, and that piece is just him, someone with no identity, which made him wonder what gave Luo Chenxi the right to confront him, like a noble, and that he remembered that Luo Chenxi mentioned about wanting to fight. The one he accused Chenxi of was saying that an opportunity had come for him, because it was about time he taught Chenxi how to behave properly around nobles. But Alice was worried about Luo Chenxi asking her to step aside. As he moved to meet the sword slash that Ackerman sent his way as his own, his hand crackled with lightning, and thus he created an explosion on a large scale, that he was no longer dealing with average opponents, but a first-class power plant. Among them, his sword created another explosion at Luo Chenxi, to what Alice was worried about Chenxi, while Ackerman thought that the attack should have hit Luo Chenxi. To his surprise when he saw Chenxi being protected by a spherical purple lightning barrier. Ackerman then said that it seemed that he had underestimated Chenxi, and that he shouldn't have to be complacent with himself. However, just because he used a bit of magic, said that he wanted to see if his attacks were faster, or Luo Chenxi's magic casting, as he slashed his sword at Chenxi, who used the burning installation, which was heard by Ackerman as he screamed in agony amidst the flames. He was angry when he said the gap. He used a ruse that was lesser novice magic. As he puffed black smoke into the gap, he asked if he should consider fighting it one-on-one, and that he wasn't going to be someone shameless. He did not know that he had been escorted, and he said he was confused, to whom the plaintiff he studied, which he covers up, and says that they don't need to compete anymore. While Ackerman wondered as he thought when Anna would ascend to the throne, and that she could be his confidant, because he thought that he should surpass it, if he was wondering that the position of Paladin Commander was within his grasp. Ackerman knew that it was all because of Luo Chenxi, that Princess Anna, who must have been manipulated by now, was slowly forming her own ideas. He then shouted, saying that Luo Chenxi should see how he would cut her in half. Luo Chenxi said burning, so it created a huge explosion. Luo Chenxi then said Ackerman had been defeated, looking like he was out of breath, when he refused in utter disbelief, thinking that he was an imperial commander, because he had lost to something like that. Luo Chenxi then said that it was because Ackerman didn't want to admit that he would only continue to sober himself up that made Ackerman struggle. When he said that, he had not lost. Luo Chenxi won the fight. The esteemed commander has lost, but he still couldn't accept his defeat. He still denied it. It was impossible for him. because he was the commander of the Imperial Knights. How could he lose to someone like Luo Chenxi? As he then fiercely tried to attack Luo Chenxi again, but was stopped by an old man's voice. Alice, who was there, looked back and saw that the old man was Bixlow's grandpa. The old man smiled and greeted Alice. Then he scolded Alice because she skipped class, and even in such a remote place. He wondered what Alice was thinking by skipping class. Then all Alice said to Bixlow was he was beside her, and Bixlow has to stop Ackerman from striking again. Bixlow then turned to Luo Chenxi and said that he might not know what might have happened, but he wondered what gave him the right to run a clone within their institute. As the commander of the Knights, and that he must not forget Alice was also watching carefully from the side. Alice screams at Bixlow that she has chosen the wrong person. Ackerman looks on as he covers the wound with a bandage for himself. He said that he would definitely settle his debt to Luo Chenxi, 10 or even 100 times over. Suddenly, Ackerman heard a voice saying that he was seeing a knight commander of the esteemed 3rd Empire Regiment actually hiding there, like a dog licking its wound. It was Leof speaking to him. Ackerman looked irritated. If he came just to taunt her, then congratulations, because she did it. Then Ackerman asked Leof what he thought of Luo Chenxi. He said that Luo Chenxi must be killed immediately. Only trouble would eventually arise if he remained on His Majesty's side. Because ever since his arrival, his noble nature had slowly started to change. Leof praised Ackerman as a smart person, that he realized if you want to do something, then do it seriously. Simply by capturing the leader, one can subdue all of his cronies. Once the urgent matter is solved, then the rest becomes easy. Suddenly, Ackerman became angry. He accused Leof of going to do something to the princess. Then Ackerman asked if he would do something for the princess, but Leof answered that only when Anna's daughter was completely within their grasp, and they would be assured of their future. Even though he said that he had planned and arranged everything, so Ackerman had nothing to worry about. And at that time, if he had Anna as a bargaining chip, perhaps even His Highness would heed her words obediently. So Ackerman asked him what he wanted from him being a new person, so Ackerman wouldn't refuse. He lectured Ackerman that by voting him out for that stupidity, so he has disapproved of himself as a fool. When she patted him to his feet and told him that it was only because he thought self-interest was the most gullible and stupid of them all. At night, Princess Anna asked Chenxi if something had happened at the institute that day. Chenxi asked back why she was suddenly like that. He thought that his fight with Ackerman should not have reached Anna's ears. Princess Anna told him that after Alice came back from skipping class with a very worried face, he felt like something happened. But then Anna said that she would forget about this matter, because he had something more important he wanted to tell Chenxi. The day before the national celebration, he had something to worry about. Anna said that the night before the celebration day was more festive than the day before. The streets will be filled with different lights and stalls. The scenery at night was incomparable to that during the day. There are even fireworks right before midnight. Then, Chenxi told Anna to sleep quickly. Then, Luo Chenxi said that His Imperial Highness could already appear. The emperor was so ashamed that he had to hide and spy on his daughter from behind the wall. Predictably, he only wanted to observe Anna's relationship with Luo Chenxi. Then the emperor said that he got information that Chenxi taught Alice magic. While it's true that establishing a connection with the country's princess is advisable, but he didn't want Chenxi to get too close to Alice, because his father was a sworn ally brother. He's not as easy as your majesty. Alice's father is the king of the Gurindor kingdom. He was a contemporary sword saint. Her father was one of the 7 demigod power holders in the entire Voves continent. And for now, Chenxi better get to know the easy ruler and the princess better. Then His Imperial Highness left, and hoped that Chenxi and her daughter would be able to spend a pleasant night together. Luo Chenxi was skeptical. Is there really a father who calls himself easy and even sells his own daughter? At midnight, Hulk, who was eating bread on the street, met Luo Chenxi. He says, what is he doing there at night? Shouldn't he be accompanying Princess Anna? Or else the Hulk would suspect that Luo Chenxi had a new lover secretly. Chenxi gets annoyed with Hulk. He says Hulk doesn't have the authority to meddle into his personal affairs. And what is he doing here? Wasn't his job supposed to be on guard? Hulk says he can't walk around in civilian clothes. Besides that, even if he was outside, His Majesty the King would be heavily guarded with Layoff and the other knights standing guard around the palace who were staying in the vicinity of the palace. But right now, Luo Chenshi thought that Layoff was in the palace. Then before seeing Anna, perhaps he could see where she lived and discover something new. Then Chenshi left. He jumped up and flew. Then, after Chenshi left, suddenly Layoff is attacked by a mysterious person and beats him bloody. At Layoff Mansion, Luo Chenshi was there. He observed something until he found something new, where he could see what was behind the trees that surprised him. Princess Anna and Alice are seen as they walk together. Where Princess Anna looked back and saw Alice still walking behind her. Where did he say that Alice had been chasing him for so long, and to some point Alice wanted to keep him? Alice replied that it was very boring in the palace. Dan saw daughter Anna who went out to play, which she then joined. He thought that he might have to follow her, and that he had come to a conclusion as well that he agreed to follow Princess Anna. At that moment they felt an ominous aura from the street behind them, which Princess Anna said that was the way she used to sneak out of the palace every day, and there shouldn't be anyone there. At that time he thought that he knew no one was aware, outside of his family and Mira, because he hoped that it would not be an evil force at that time. The shadow moves towards the wall. Alice panicked as she wondered what could happen to a shadow. As they wrapped themselves in princesses, Anna and Alice too, a voice was heard. When surprised to see the golden hair of the Garandor kingdom, which was finally concluded to be fine because it dragged the girls into the shadows. The Hulk is seen as his arm is injured by a surprise attack from Ackerman, where he asked Ackerman about what happened. All he asked was if he betrayed the Emperor. Ackerman laughed as he replied that if Hulk ever knew that he always hoped to see Hulk lying on the ground. The way he was right now was as if he was like a dying mutt, asking for his life non-stop. However, he wasn't going to let Hulk end easily. When he accused Hulk, he said that he would continue to beat and torture him, until he wished he was dead when he knocked Hulk unconscious. Where did someone appear who turned out to be Luo Chenshi? Then Ackerman said that he had been informed that Luo Chenshi's secret date had been planned tonight with daughter Anna. Yet he was nowhere to be found by Luo Chenshi, because he is in his custody. Unless he wanted something bad to happen to him, Luo Chenshi had to try to behave as he wished. Luo Chenshi didn't say anything, but immediately moved to slash at Ackerman, in the middle of words as he smashed Ackerman through a brick wall. As he stabs her, and then immediately pulls out where Hulk tries to say something about Anna's daughter, to which Luo Chenshi replied that she would handle it. That about him and Hulk having to try to find a safe place to rest because things just weren't looking good. So he gave the Hulk some healing potions. Princess Anna and Alice are tied up in a dark building. Alice told Princess Anna to stay calm and not be afraid because she was right there with him, to which Anna replied that she was fine. And even if he was scared again, he wouldn't cry because of what Luo Chenshi promised him. That he, as long as there is Chenshi, he will be fine. Then their kidnapper showed his true appearance, and said that the two princesses still have enough energy. It surprised Alice when she saw that it was Layoff who had kidnapped them, and he asked Layoff if he wasn't the commander of the Imperial Knights Regiment. Layoff said that if he wasn't afraid of being beheaded by the Emperor for such behavior. Leaf also answered that Alice is the princess of the Garandor Kingdom and the daughter of the Sword Saint. He really has a distinctive way of expressing himself. With that said, he wondered if the blood of a sword saint who overcame the powers of a goddess would be the best fodder for the demons. And Princess Anna, who was beside him, was actually chosen by the goddess. That Princess Anna said from the start of the kidnapping she had known that this was something even others would know. Though he would never have thought that Layoff was actually behind all of this. Layoff laughed as he told her that if daughter Anna thought that everything that happened back then was just a coincidence, and if she ever thought that she would be caught by him so easily, and if she ever wondered that someone who had always been by her side all along had always contacted her in secret, which could possibly be Chenshi, who has been with him lately, which made Princess Anna and Alice surprised about what they just heard. Princess Anna was seen kneeling and pleading on Chenshi's behalf, that Luo Chenshi should be forgiven if it was his despicable behavior, and the shameless things he has done. Layoff said to daughter Anna that it seemed that his relationship with Chenshi was really good, so that he is suitable to speak for Chenshi. But in any case, it was useless for Princess Anna to deny it. and that is the only day that can catch him. And it was a pity that that young man who was favored by the princess turned out to be a traitor. Yet they still believed him like a fool, which made him sound so ridiculous, but somehow Princess Anna countered him, telling him to stop insulting Luo Chenxi. He said that he trusted Chenxi. He wasn't going to try something like that, so go have to stop bad-mouthing him, because it was ridiculous to him. He then wondered how his father managed to appoint Laof as an imperial knight, but being able to do such a thing to him, however, Laof was surprised how Princess Anna still believed in fantasies until then. So he asked her about her fiancé. He believed in trying to convince the princess to stop believing in Chenxi, because with him still believing in Chenxi, they wouldn't be able to attract Luo Chenxi if something comes out of the palace. But Laof gripped his clothes. He threatens daughter Anna, then know who has plotted against him to be someone who meets his needs every day. And that is Mira. Then Luo Chenxi on the other side asked where Laof took daughter Anna, from Mira trying to lie that she doesn't know where Anna's daughter is, because he thought that Chenxi was with him all along. But then Luo Chenxi grabbed his clothes and thus threatened to deal with him if he lied. So he then confessed that he knew where the princess was. He said that since the first time they met, then Mira thought that the kind of guy who not only approached the princess alone, but also violated the maids would be finished. And he could bet that was the scenario Luo Chenxi was trying to set up. However, Chenxi told him that he had obviously raised his guard after coming to such a strange place. But that doesn't seem clear either. She was who could plot against him. So he had started to pay special attention to Mira recently, and roughly knowing what Mira was trying to do, but did not reveal his thoughts to Anna. She tells him that regardless of what she does, she is like a sister to Anna whom Anna trusts a lot. He didn't mean to frame Princess Anna like he had done, but he had no choice because his parents and family were all servants of the emperor, and only if had used his parents' lives to threaten him. So Luo Chenxi told him to save words of sympathy until Anna arrived. So he had to tell him where that shit Laof called him was. He knows what the devil likes the most. They like pure Santes as food, due to the ultimate fate of the saint being blessed by the goddesses also reaching the battlefield to become food for the demons. He then dragged her to put on the magic circle. She lied to tell him that inside the dormant devil soul circle. And so he said he would use Princess Anna's body and soul to awaken the sleeping demon, Asmodeus. But Princess Anna wonders that she heard that the devil has been killed by the troops and crusades served by Laof. He was then surprised that Laof had engaged in such a deal with a demon, which however is the truth and not a lie that the devil has been killed. She told him that long before the demon died, he had been placed as a soul shard within him, thus providing that the demon had not been completely exterminated, because he could go back time and time again and hope to use the devil's power to destroy the entire nation as he dragged it to move towards the chain of demonic magic circle downwards. Princess Anna was scared and said that she didn't want to be killed by the demon. Instead, she would rather stay with Luo Chenxi and become the most important person in her life. Regarding the things that were said by Princess Anna, however, made Laof angry, because Princess Anna doesn't seem to change with what she has. Out of frustration, she retorted towards Laof and made him realize that she was a noble princess from the Restinian Empire, so that Leaf should not dare to treat him like a dog, and he decided to fight Laof from himself, when they suddenly saw a flash of light, the one where it was Luo Chenxi who seemed to have come and saved Princess Anna. This of course shocked Princess Anna and Alice. How did Luo Chenxi know where they were? He then had them leave everything to him as they had held out long before he arrived. Chenxi, he shouted at Ackerman to get up, because he should be prepared to be beaten and straightened out by others, after he planned to do the bold thing by touching her, when he was responsible for looking after her during this period. He asked Ackerman if he could still be called human. To lay such a heavy hand on the princess, he beat up, while Ackerman was surprised when he realized how strong he was, which he found that he was unable to defeat him at this time. He thought that he should retreat. He reconsidered his strategy immediately where he knew what he was thinking, and he told him not to even think about running away as he pressed him into the ground, where the ground was split under the immense pressure. What Ackerman later saw was that he was dying. He spoke very weakly, and said that if Chen Shi gave him time to activate the cracked magic circle, he wouldn't be able to beat him like that. Luo Chenxi then asked how many lives he would have to sacrifice for that. Ackerman replied that Luo Chenxi didn't understand him, because sacrifices are necessary for Lord Asmodeus's awakening, because they should feel honored to be sacrificed. And as long as Lord Asmodeus is revived, the souls of those who have been sacrificed will become a part of Lord Asmodeus, and they live forever in his body, which in total truth, they will live forever. And then said that Ackerman was right, that he didn't understand. If the moment he conjured a ball, a huge wave of dark energy, said that Ackerman just needed to die. Luo Chenxi was then seen as the uncuffed one. Princess Anna and Alice. Princess Anna apologized that it all happened because of love. His Luo Chenxi then answered him that there was no need to apologize since he did well one time. Alice then hugged Princess Anna and said it was good to see her safe, and heard at that moment their surroundings suddenly turned crimson with an extraordinary aura. Where did Chen Shi feel the incredible magic power? He immediately tries to send the princesses away before danger befalls them, but the princesses try to tell him that he didn't have to worry about them. But the next moment a coincidence was nowhere to be found beside them. However, they finally saw it in front of them was a demon. Yang then asked if he was the hero they would be fighting against. The devil who had just possessed Luo Chenxi in his first awakening answered him that he wasn't a hero, and to be honest, he had spent most of his strength repairing a certain person. Otherwise, he would not be forced to live there. Because the princesses said because he might have run away a while ago. The devil then says that not even a true hero would dare to fight him alone, because the sword in Luo Chenxi's hand lacked the capacity to injure him. While he was still in a semi-conscious state when he asked Chenxi not to underestimate him, and he is known as Asmodeus the Demon Overlord. He asked Luo Chenxi to get lost, if he doesn't want to die. He then said that he would not stay there, if he wasn't sure of his victory that was struck with dark lightning when he laughed, saying that since Chenxi was brave enough to still stand before him, he would allow her to fulfill his death wish. To which Luo Chenxi attacked with her sword, emitting a fiery aura that astonished Asmodeus, when he saw how powerful his gap attack was. Because of the power of the goddess, Luo Chenxi jumped into the air and landed on the demon's head. As he stabbed his sword until the Asmodeus started to crumble, and Luo Chenxi laughed, saying that the Demon King was nothing more than even thought that he couldn't beat him easily. Luo Chenxi found herself on the bed where she saw daughter Anna sitting beside her, who was relieved to see her wake up when she told him she had been asleep for 10 days straight. Luo Chenxi then said that since the past 10 days then, their deal should have passed the deadline, where Anna's daughter told her not to trouble herself about the deal, because now that is a thing of the past. Which made Chenxi wonder if Princess Anna gave up on having it. Meanwhile, Princess Anna said she had realized what she had to do and became a splendid empress. Dan asked Luo Chenxi to stay, and that he knew it was an impolite thing to ask, but he wanted to be with her, so she can stay with him and show him his growth too. And that even though she was just a girl right now who only gave him trouble, she would nevertheless become someone who would gain his approval in the future and possibly marry him. Then at Luo Chenxin's side, he said that he had never mentioned leaving before, which made Princess Anna confused. Luo Chenxi then continued that he promised to teach Alice about magic, implying that he would stay for at least a little while. And he cried when he said if Chenxi knew how much courage it would take her to say all those words. Alice is seen in the shade of a tree on a sunny morning. Where did Luo Chenxi come over and told him to better rest well, which prompted him to immediately call Luo Chenxi back, that he could still continue. Princess Anna then also sternly said to Alice that if she couldn't control herself in the future, then she shouldn't expect help from Luo Chenxi in the future. To which he replied that he understood. Mira brings breakfast to daughter Anna. He saw a cold gaze that prompted him to explain that he had informed the emperor of everything that happened that day and was prepared to redeem his life, and that the emperor somehow relinquished his family and allowed him to continue serving Princess Anna as before. He had never repeated such a mistake, and that he would use the rest of his life to repay the emperor for his kindness and the princess's kindness. At this time, Princess Anna asked Alice to come eat, so that he can continue his training. Princess Anna, Alice, and Luo Chenxi looked like they were sitting on the cloth spread out on the floor. Princess Anna then said that Alice should relax because she had been pushing herself too hard. Alice replied that she had to because the field path was getting closer. When he's munching on his bread, and he's got things to go through, which includes hunting in the wild, like a monster engaged in an actual battle, because she couldn't afford to lose her face and dignity as a princess from the Holy Sword, as well as a princess herself, for which daughter Anna later encouraged her to do so anyway, because Alice is such a strong-willed person. Meanwhile, Chenshin, he seemed to be wondering about Alice's internal magic power. Definitely not inferior to Anna. However, his mastery of magic was so much worse that it made him appear that way. Alice is better suited as a warrior than a magister, while Alice is more obsessed with becoming a magister than anyone else, which he found to be something personal. Alice then asked Luo Chenxi if she would follow them to their fieldwork. It was then that he replied that he had no plans to come along. Besides, he wasn't even an institute student, which disappointed daughter Anna, when he realized that they would be apart for 2 whole weeks. However, Luo Chenxi thought of using the period of separation from Princess Anna to do something he wanted to do at Ronaldo too. Chenxi looks on as she is going through the cute-looking witch picture she got from the king. She finally found the place she was looking for. He walked into the building where the man in the dark cave who was sitting inside wondered where Luo Chenxi had come from, because he had black hair, thinking that he was the prince of the Snow Moon Nation. To which he went to the counter and called to see if anyone was taking care of him. At that time he saw a girl who was a bartender known as Ruby, who was drooling as she fell into a deep sleep, while he was holding a bottle in his hand, which he shouted at her, which woke her up, and immediately said the commission was there, and if that's what alcohol he needs, he can drink it just fine. Then he said he wanted to see Master Abbot, who made Ruby burp when she was surprised. But Luo Chenxi was there to see her father. When he asked if Chenxi had arranged for an appointment ahead of time, he said she didn't, because he gave her an envelope saying that she should clear things up. Ruby notices the Rustinian royal signature on the seal, which is from the current Emperor Fred, and he asked her to follow him immediately. It wasn't long before Ruby was seen as she walked into a room, as she announces her visit to her father, who is flustered by the sudden arrival of his daughter. All she said was that she had told him earlier not to disturb him if nothing happened. He is seen holding a glass of wine. Ruby then remarked that it was not good for her father to drink in private, to which his father replied by calling him a drunken son, who immediately stood with his back to the locked wine rack, with the Shannons and the smoke cut off, saying he shouldn't try to snatch his drink. What Ruby thinks is that the Emperor has some business involving her, not her abbot. It was then seen when he thanked Luo Chenxi for bringing a letter from Fred, who was the current emperor. When he introduces himself as the Lord of the Adventures is the Alliance, and that Fred and him were good adventurer friends before he became emperor. Saying that he never imagined that the period would see such a development, he asked Chenxi if she was the emperor's son-in-law. Fred chose it for Princess Anna, at which Luo Chenxi's expression visibly changed. When he replied that the abbot should not care about that, it was said that it seemed that this was Luo Chenxi's first time on an adventure, as he asked Luo Chenxi if he had considered becoming an adventurer before, and Luo Chenxi nodded in agreement. Seeing this, the abbot asked him to submit his information according to what was written, as he gave her a form saying that Luo Chenxi had to hand over the information to the Ruby. Luo Chenxi then asked where he could test his current level. When the abbot heard this, he said that because Fred had asked him to look after Chenxi, and his Luo Chenxi seemed to be an ordinary person, she suggested he give her a grade of emerald, which grade of diamond is just above that. He had to accept the judgment of the other guilds, because there are only four diamonds on the continent. But Luo Chenxi thought that she couldn't get used to the emerald class yet. But he thanked Abbot for giving him such a high rating, which he thought, since he saw Luo Chenxi just now, he looked like an adventurer. He should then choose his first commission, as he can recommend a few that suit him better. He replied that he had thought about it and wanted Ruby to accept the commission to kill an ultra-class magical beast, where Ruby surprised, when he was wondering how Luo Chenxi planned to fight against such powerful magical beasts. All he asked her was she really okay with facing powerful magical beasts, when he was a rookie adventurer. Luo Chenxi replied that he would indeed do that, because he thought that the beast was in his storage ring at the moment.
The next day, while Sharon was walking, the other students gossiped about Sharon teasing Amy earlier. Sharon, who heard them, sighed. After that incident, Sharon wasn't sure how she should go to school without feeling embarrassed. But for something like this, it usually ended pretty quickly, even though he thought they would continue to mock him. He wondered if he could assume that their suspicions about him had subsided. Then, not long after, he saw Sariel, who was looking around. He remembered that he was always with Amy, so he wondered if something had happened. He also approached Sariel, making her very surprised. Sariel then grabbed Sharon by the collar and asked why she was there. And what about Amy? Sharon was confused because Sariel suddenly spoke like that. Sariel then showed him a piece of paper and asked if nothing had happened to him. Sharon was shocked to see the contents of the letter that she had been kidnapped. He also asked Sariel who this black magician was. 30 minutes ago, Amy and Sariel were called by someone. Amy was given a piece of paper, and the person told her that the boss wanted to meet her. They also wanted to ignore him, but then he told them that his boss said if he conveyed his message like this, Amy would want to hear it. He said to accept the invitation if Amy didn't want her man to be destroyed. Sariel was disgusted by what he was talking about and asked Amy to quickly go to the library, but Amy suddenly took the paper. Amy is shocked to find that Sharon has been kidnapped. He was sure that Jake was the one behind all this. He then crumpled the paper and shouted that he had no relation whatsoever with Sharon, but the messenger left, saying he was just a messenger. Sariel was surprised when she saw a black magician written there because they were known as a bad group. They are bullies who harass and bully good students. Sariel didn't understand why they had kidnapped Sharon and what this had to do with Amy. But Amy was sure because at that time she couldn't help herself and got back at Jake. Sariel also suggested telling the professor because not only Sharon, but even Amy could also be in a dangerous situation. Amy hesitated because it was the right decision. But things weren't that simple. If the professor's God intervenes while searching for the truth, he and Sharon will have to explain their relationship, and their past will be revealed. If it was like that, they would discover that Sharon was a commoner. He then remembered Sharon, who said that he would do anything to make Amy believe in him. He even remembers when Sharon was a child who was bullied by thugs, even though he didn't do anything. Amy was worried that it would happen to Sharon again. Amy also said that she would go alone and tell Sariel that if she didn't come back before 7 o'clock, report it to the professor. Sariel didn't know what Amy would do by going there alone. He didn't even know how many there were. Amy apologized because she had her reasons, but he was sure that even if there were 10 bastards like Jake, they would mean nothing to him. After hearing Sariel's story, Sharon was surprised that Amy went to save her. He thought a bad person like him couldn't help him. Because Amy went alone, Sharon asked what they were doing there. But Sariel says that Amy said she has her reasons why she can't just let this go. This was the first time Amy asked Sariel for help like this. Sharon started thinking because there was still 1 hour left before the time set by Amy. He believed the reason why Amy didn't want to tell the professor was to keep their secret. Their secrets are intertwined. So Sharon concludes that Amy is going alone to keep her secret safe and decides to leave. He then asked Sariel to wait until the appointed time. The 14th training hall was in the mountains, and Sharon didn't know if she could reach it in time. But suddenly, Sharon started to float. Sariel took him flying because if Sharon just ran, he wouldn't make it in time. He then said that they would photonize and told Sharon to hold on tightly. Sharon saw that his body began to glow and the two of them began to speed away. Sharon shouted as they sped along. They finally land and a shaken Sharon vomits afterwards as Sariel rushes to find Amy. But they didn't find anyone here. It's strange because they got here 10 minutes earlier than the promised time. Sharon felt like they changed places. Because the location on the paper had already been revealed, they did that in case the report reached the teachers. Sharon thought that their plan was quite neat. And this was not the time to worry about her identity being revealed. They may be trapped in a more dangerous situation than they previously thought. Sharon also asked Sariel to go back and tell everything to the professor because it would be faster if she went back alone. Sariel was doubtful because Amy said she had her reasons and asked to wait until 7 o'clock. But Sharon assured Sariel that the reason was because of her. He was sure that if he helped, nothing would happen, and asked Sariel to leave immediately. Sariel was confused and very surprised when she discovered that the important reason was Sharon. He wondered what Sharon's relationship was with him. Are the rumors about the two of them secretly dating true? But Sharon said there was no time to explain because the more time passed, the more dangerous it would be.
Sariel finally understood and hurriedly left. Sharon sighed.
Mountains were something
familiar to him, so he thought that he might be able to find a trace.
Then he found
footprints. He discovered that these traces belonged to two people not long ago, but they stopped in the middle. He asked if they were flying. He then heard the sound of something breaking and was worried that something had happened. In the middle of the forest, the messenger shot magic and reasoned that he slipped while laughing. Soon, Jake's subordinates also appeared. They were excited because Amy came here. Then Jake arrives and says that Amy is an important guest, so they have to behave themselves. Undeterred, Amy says that there seem to be a lot of kids who don't have a life here. Since Amy came alone, Jake asked if Sharon was so valuable that she would follow his directions so innocently. Amy replies that she doesn't need to burn down Jake's entire family just to kill a few rats. Jake was very annoyed with Amy's arrogant attitude, but he was sure that with this many viewers, Amy wouldn't be able to do as she pleased. This time he came here with a plan, but Amy didn't care about his plan and asked where Sharon was. They all burst out laughing. Jake said that Sharon was probably licking her book in the library. He asks why they should care about Sharon's location. He tells her that they all only care about Amy. They were all nearly mad because they wanted revenge for what Amy had done to them. Of course, Jake was also very irritated from last night. Therefore, he will also take revenge. Amy took a deep breath. He said since Sharon wasn't here, everything became easier. As Jake said, because of the large audience here, things can get troublesome. But Amy smiled sarcastically and asked if that meant she just had to kill them one by one. Jake, who heard that, became a little nervous. In an instant, Amy shot her magic backward and burned the arm of the disciple carrying the message. They panicked because Amy did it. At that point, Jake told them to calm down and put out the fire. Since the target form is weak against multiple enemies at once, Jake orders them to move quickly while maintaining their formation. They darted through the air to avoid Amy, but one of them was magically blown up. Amy continues to apply targets and asks who said they could do that. He then shot a fireball at them. Jake's subordinates, even though he said Amy was using target form, her rotation speed was this fast. One by one, Jake's subordinates were taken down. Jake didn't understand what was happening because Amy's strength was different from what he saw on the training field. He asked whether Amy didn't have combat experience, but he thought that no matter what technique Amy used, there would be a weakness. Jake flew up and started to activate his magic. Because his opponent was in target form, he decided to attack from the vertical axis. He fired wind cutter magic at Amy's back. He thought that Amy would be hit, but Amy avoided it by just moving slightly. Jake was surprised to see that, and Amy, who saw Jake's expression, laughed and said that it was called a scheme. Amy then uses a fire strike and blasts Jake. After the fall, Jake is very angry with Amy. Amy also came over to him. While laughing, he said that this was the reason why Jake's grades were so low. It turns out that he wasted his time on useless things like this. Jake was furious and did something. Amy doesn't know what she's doing and says there's no point in fighting. But suddenly, he felt strange. He then screamed in pain. Jake's subordinates finally revealed themselves while maintaining the magic they used on Amy. Jake is now sure that Amy has been checkmated because if Amy doesn't release her spirit zone, she will go crazy. What Amy is feeling right now is anti-magic. Amy was very angry because Jake dared to cheat by using forbidden magic. Jake then bound Amy with magic and laughed with satisfaction because he was finally able to catch Amy. He also asked whether Amy would now accept his proposal. He threatened that he had to answer carefully for his safety because right now he wanted to commit a crime. Amy warns that if Jake wants to do that, she will kill him. But Amy was having trouble because she couldn't escape and thought that she had to find a way. Seeing that Amy was still fighting, Jake said that Amy didn't understand the situation at all. Remembering that Amy hates men, Jake offers his help. If he carved Amy's face, then they would all avoid him and ask if it wasn't fun. Seeing Amy's expression made Jake laugh because this was what he wanted in the first place. He put the knife in Amy's eyes and demanded that Amy beg for a second chance. Amy feels cornered because her strength is starting to disappear. He then realized that this was what Sharon felt at that time. Suddenly someone shouted to stop them. While holding a wooden staff, Sharon called out to them inhuman delinquents loudly. The newly arrived Sharon was out of breath while holding the wooden staff. Seeing Sharon, who came alone, they laughed and said that the prince had arrived to save his girlfriend. Amy also scolded Sharon for coming alone. Sharon didn't expect that they could beat the #1 middle-class student like that. She didn't understand how they could do it.
But she thought that Sariel should have called the teachers
but she
here,
thought
so
that
he just
Sariel
needed to
should
buy
have called the
time.
teachers here.
Sharon
So he
also
just
demanded
needed to
that
buy
they let
time.
go of Amy and ran
Sharon
towards
also
them.
demanded that
They
they
didn't
let go of
expect
Amy
Sharon
and
to
ran
charge
towards
forward
them.
towards them.
They didn't expect
Jake
Sharon
tells
to
them to
charge
move
forward towards
aside.
them.
It wasn't long
Jake tells
before
them to
Sharon
move
felt
aside.
something
It
strange and
wasn't
then
long
felt a
before Sharon felt
tremendous
something
headache.
strange and then
Seeing
felt a
Sharon
tremendous
who
headache.
fell, they burst out
Seeing
laughing.
Sharon who fell,
They laughed
they
at
burst
Sharon
out
who brought a
laughing.
wooden stick
They
to
laughed at
fight them.
Sharon who brought a wooden stick to
Sariel
fight
also
them.
told Sharon to turn
Sariel
off the
also
spirit
told Sharon
zone
to
because
turn
it
off
was
the spirit zone
anti-magic.
because it was anti-magic.
Sharon who heard that
Sharon
didn't
who
think
heard
that
that
this was
didn't think that this was
anti-magic.
anti-magic.
Amy warned that
warned
Sharon could be paralyzed and unable to become a magician for the rest of her life. So she told him to shut down his spirit zone immediately. At that moment, all of Sharon's senses felt like they were leaving her body. His consciousness seemed to be split into pieces. He then remembered to tell his previous teachings. Both anti-magic and spirit zones are just waves. If he increases the density of the spirit zone until anti-magic can't penetrate it. Shironi tried to hold him back. They didn't even expect Shironi to try to restrain him.
Amy
scolded him and told him to give up, but they were all stunned to see what happened. Shironi was finally able to get back on his feet in his defense form and decided that he needed more sides. They panicked because the attack just bounced.
Seeing his subordinates panicking, Jake told them not to be afraid because their emotions interfered with his wave. Shironi then approached them slowly. Because their magic bounced off of them.
Because their magic bounced off of them.
Too.
They injured themselves
Amy didn't understand what was happening.
Amy didn't understand what was happening.
Because he couldn't use his spirit zone.
Because he couldn't use his spirit zone. He didn't know.
But he realized that he could enter his spirit zone.
Amy
was then stunned to see
what was in front of her. He did not expect that someone could form a spirit zone as dense and cold as this.
Sharon thought that he could feel something squirming at his feet. It felt like stepping on a tiny caterpillar. Jake screams that this doesn't make sense. They had six people. So he didn't understand how they could lose against a noob like him. Jake shouted that he was sure Sharon was a student skilled in anti-magic, and that's why he could enter the academy through a special route. Sharon and Amy were confused hearing that. Out of anger, he began to activate his magic towards Sharon. Sharon thought that this was bad since he didn't know how to use any magic. When Jake was laughing uproariously, suddenly he was punched by Amy to knock him down. Still not satisfied, Amy kept hitting Jake's face. Shironi also asked Amy to calm down, but Amy ignored him and continued to beat Jake. Amy, who witnessed this, said that if she continued to use such a schema, she would die. So he tries to stop Amy. Amy eventually gets separated from Jake and they fall out. A worried Sharon asked if she was okay, but Amy didn't answer, making Amy panic. Sharon also heard snoring. Sharon felt that Amy didn't faint, but she fell from exhaustion. Sharon then thanked Amy because she heard that Amy was there to save her. Amy was suddenly startled and quickly stood up. He then asked Sharon why he dared to come here to fight even though he already knew that he was weak. Amy also asked Sharon to leave here now because if they were caught by the teachers, then things would get complicated. But Sharon was sure that Sariel might have reported it to all the teachers. Amy was surprised because she had told Sariel not to do that. But according to Shironi, there was nothing else they could do because the situation was so urgent. Amy was getting dizzy because Sharon didn't know the rules there. Things would get complicated once the school intervened. Magicians can only give up something after they understand it logically. They will not just let this matter go. An irritated Amy asked if Sharon wanted their secret to be discovered by them too. Jake, who pretended to faint, became curious about what the secret meant. Amy also invited Sharon to just run and think about the consequences later. But suddenly, a very bright light appeared from behind them. Seeing that light, Amy hoped that what would emerge was a teacher who was old and easy to give up on things. But what appeared were the two deadliest instructors in this school. Sariel, who was worried, rushed to Amy and asked if she was okay. Amy answered that she was okay and asked how Amy came here so quickly. At that moment, Professor Thad fired a fire sun spell into the sky. Sharon, who witnessed this, had heard that magic was very difficult to use. Professor Thad was then shocked when he saw the fallen students and turned to Amy. He approached him and asked why a student as intelligent as him could be involved in a situation like this. After seeing that, Professor Sienna approached Shironi and told her that they had come because they heard that the two of them were in trouble. So she asked Sharon to explain the situation. Jake suddenly stood up and said that he was sure he could explain everything to them. He explains because of a personal grudge. He asked for a duel. But hearing Jake's story, Professor Sienna said that he heard they received a letter containing threats. And also, he saw Jake using anti-magic. He asked if Jake wouldn't admit that he didn't know the school rules. Jake panicked and reasoned that Amy was too strong, so that was the only way they could ward her off. Jake then acted like a victim by saying that they were the ones who had many victims.
Apart from that, he admitted that Amy was the one who broke the rules when she was attacked in the library. That's why he asked for a duel, because he was angry. Amy denied it and said that Jake was the one who threatened her in the library, and this time he kidnapped Sharon. But Jake said that he didn't kidnap her. He admitted that even today it was Amy who attacked them first, and because Sharon didn't immediately report this incident to the teachers, and instead came straight here, it showed that the two of them were hiding something. Jake emphasizes that the culprit is the two of them. Therefore, he asked Sharon to tell him the truth. In his heart, Jake laughed because of how terrible black magicians were. He plans to expand all these operations. He doesn't care how much it costs. Once he unearths their secrets, local newspapers, national agencies, and even churches will find out. He wanted to spread all the rumors to all corners. But Professor Sienna told Jake to stop his nonsense because he and his friends were using anti-magic. They even use anti-magic to attack someone. He was sure that Sharoney's or Amy's mind could be destroyed because of that, and they could even go crazy because of it. Professor Attella threatens that this is more than enough to get Jake out of school. But Jake just laughed and asked how a normal teacher like him could have the balls to say something like that. Professor Thad whispered to Professor Sienna that the Ardias family was the biggest donor to their academy, but Professor Sienna asked, wasn't it the job of instructors like them to guide their students on the right path? If he couldn't do that, then the academy didn't need him. Jake laughed again and challenged who would be forced out later, him or Professor Sienna. Jake, who was screaming like a madman, was convinced that the world revolved around money. In the face of money, everyone will be forced to their knees. Hearing that, Professor Sienna also said that Jake seemed to need to learn something first and activated his magic. Amy was confused as to why the situation had turned out like this, and Sharon thought that it looked cool. Ice also surrounded Jake, and he was surrounded by ice needles. Sharon was very impressed that Professor Sienna didn't even touch Jake's clothes. That means he has complete control over his spells. Sharoney finally understood why Professor Sienna was called the Ice Magic Genius. Professor Sienna then asks Jake if he thinks that everything is possible with money. Jake told him to stop talking nonsense and let him go right now. Professor Sienna finally released him. He told them that they already knew that Jake often hurt other students, but the academy had refrained from punishing him. Jake was sure that it was because of his family's wealth, but Professor Sienna told him not to get it wrong. He told me that this academy was not a place that taught with the hope of rewarding money, but they teach something money can't get. Jake also asked what it was, and Professor Sienna replied that it was his dream. Professor Sienna asks if Jake's dream is to become a mage. Jake was shaken. He remembered when Professor Sienna promoted him to Class 5 and he promised he would become a great mage who could repay him. The dream he shared with his friends. They studied together to become mages. Because of that, Professor Sienna asked if it wasn't Jake's dream all along. Jake also remembers his past as a child with his friends when they dreamed of becoming a mage. Professor Sienna also asked if Jake wanted to throw it all away with his own two hands. Jake finally lowered his head and apologized. Because of this incident, Sharon thought of the most important thing to her. Jake and all the Black Magician members have redeemed their sins and dreamed of becoming great mages again. But that story has to be saved for later. Currently, after their injuries were treated, they had to face their punishment in the punishment room. And in the end, it cannot be avoided. Elsewhere, Sharoney is being asked by Professor Thad why he didn't immediately tell them, because if something like that happened, he should have contacted the teachers first. Sharoney instead immediately went to save her upperclassman who was much higher than her class alone, and that was not something they could take for granted. Amy had no other choice and said that she would tell the truth. Sharoney even thought so. She thought they wouldn't be able to hide this forever, although he didn't know who the principal told about his identity. Amy then told him that actually, Sharon was his girlfriend. They were all stunned and surprised to hear that. Amy was caught asking someone for help in a dramatic way. The criminals laughed because no one would save him in the mountains like this. But suddenly, a white horse appeared behind them, surprising them. Sharoney kicked them and announced her arrival to Amy. He finally let go of Amy and held Amy like a princess. They slowly brought their faces closer to kiss. The girls screamed excitedly when they heard the story because it was so romantic. They asked if the story was true. Sariel answered of course it was all true because she saw it with her own eyes. At that moment, an angry Amy grabbed Sariel's shoulder and asked her loudly what kind of rumors she was spreading on the notice board. Many papers were talking about yesterday's events. There are even
On the
writings that
notice
express
board,
their
many
envy.
papers were
The
talking
girls
about
are
yesterday's
excited while the
events.
boys feel very
There are
jealous.
even writings that
Amy
express
also
their envy.
scolded Amy because she
The
didn't
girls
even
are
see what
excited while the
happened.
boys feel very
But
jealous.
Sariel laughed and answered that
Amy
she
also
didn't need to
scolded
look
Amy
directly
because she
to know
didn't
what
even
was
see
going
what
on,
happened.
because she herself
But
said that
Sariel
they were
laughed
dating.
and answered
He
that she
also
didn't need
asked
to
if
look
they must have
directly to know
kissed.
what was going on.
Sariel then says at least
Because she
everything went
herself said that
smoothly.
they were dating.
This way all the male
He
students would
also
not
asked if
dare
they must
approach
have
her.
kissed.
Amy also agreed
Sariel
that
then
it was
says
true.
at least everything went
A few days
smoothly.
ago, after the
This
incident
way,
at that
all the
time,
male
Professor
students would not
Thad
dare
hit the
approach
table
her.
and asked if he must be
Amy
lying.
also agreed that it
He
was
wanted to
true.
believe that the Amy he
A
knew
few days
didn't want to
ago,
date.
after the incident
After all,
at that time,
Sharon is also a
Professor
student
Thad
who has
hit
just
the
been
table
accepted.
and asked if he
But
must
Amy
be lying.
answered that actually,
He wanted
they
to
had fought
believe
when
that
they
the
were
Amy
young.
he knew didn't want
He
to
said
date.
meeting again at the Magic
After all,
Academy like this
Sharon is also
felt
a
like
student
fate.
who has just been accepted.
He then asked
But
Sharon if
Amy
that wasn't
answered that
true.
actually, they had fought
Sharon
when
was
they were
about to
young.
ask what she was
He
talking
said
about,
meeting again at the
but
Magic
suddenly a kick
Academy
in her
like
leg
this
made her
felt
follow
like
Amy's
fate.
words.
He then
Professor
asked Sharon if
Sienna
that
and
wasn't
Professor
true.
Thad, who heard
Sharon
that,
was about to
felt
ask
that it
what she
made
was
sense
talking
for
about.
Sharon to
But
rush in
suddenly
alone
a
like
kick in her
that.
leg made her follow
Because of
Amy's
that,
words.
Amy
Professor
thought it was
Sienna
better
and
to date
Professor
like
Thad,
this
who
than to
heard
have
that,
their
felt that it
past
made sense for
exposed.
Sharon to rush in alone
Sariel,
like
who
that.
was very
Because
excited,
of
said that she felt
Amy thought it
strange
was
from
better
the
to date
start.
like this than
Since
to have
today
their
was joint
past
class,
exposed.
he said that Amy could
Sariel,
see
who was
Sharon.
very excited,
So
said
he
that
asked
she
if
felt
Amy would
strange
meet
from
up
the
with
start.
Sharon after class,
Since today was
and
joint
maybe have a
class,
greeting
he
dinner
said that
and then
Amy
a
could
date in
see
the
Sharon.
library.
So
But
he asked
Amy
if
replied
would
that
meet
they
up
would
with
study
Sharon
as
after
usual.
class and maybe have a
Sariel
greeting
became
dinner and then a
disappointed
date in
and
the
said that it was
library.
boring.
But Amy
Sharon
replied
just
that they
laughed it
would
off
study
and
as
thought that he
usual.
still had things to do.
Sariel
So how
became
could there be a date
disappointed
like
and
that?
said that it was boring.
Also, Sharon is living a
Sharon
normal
just
school
laughed it
life
off
and her
and
luck
thought
is
that he
doing
still had
well.
things to
But
do.
suddenly, he
So
thought that he
how could
didn't
there be
like
a
this.
date like that?
On the second
Also,
combined middle-class
Sharon is
training
living a
field,
normal school
Sharon was
life,
called by
and her luck is
Sariel.
doing well.
Sariel
But
approached
suddenly
Sharon
he
and
thought
asked
that
if
he
she
didn't
missed
like this.
Sharoni.
On the
Sharon
second
laughed
combined
and asked
middle-class
Sariel
training
not to
field,
do that.
Sharon was called
That's
by
what Amy
Sariel.
meant earlier. He
Sariel
thought
approached
Sharon should be
and
grateful
asked if
because
she
he
missed
pretended to be
Sharon.
his girlfriend.
Sharon laughed
But
and
he
asked
felt like
Sariel not
Sharon
to
was
do
holding
that.
back when he was around
That's
her.
what Amy meant earlier.
He then cleared his throat to
He thought
attract
Sharon
Sharon's
should be
attention
grateful because
and
he
said that when
pretended
it was
to be
just
his
them
girlfriend.
here,
But
Sharon
he
could
felt like
chat
Sharon
as
was holding
comfortably as
back
she
when he was
wanted.
around her.
Sariel was
He then cleared his
surprised
throat
because
to
she had
attract
never heard
Sharon's
Amy say
attention
something like that
and said that
before
when it
and
was
wondered
just
if
them
this was
here,
what was called
Sharon
love.
could chat as comfortably
Sharon
as she
answered that
wanted.
it was okay because
Sariel
they were
was
still
surprised because
upperclassmen.
she had never heard
He
Amy
then
say
left
something
first.
like that before.
Amy
And
suddenly
wondered
turned
if this was
around,
what
making
was called
Sariel
love.
confused as to what was
Sharon
happening.
answered that it was okay
While returning to
because
her
they were
seat,
still
Sharon
upperclassmen.
heard the other
He
students'
then left
jeers.
first.
They said that Sharon
Amy suddenly
bragged
turned around,
constantly
making
and that she
Sariel
was able to
confused
enter
as
this
to what was
academy just
happening.
because of her looks.
While returning to her
They
seat,
even said that because
Sharon heard the
Sharoni
other
was only
students'
dating and had
jeers.
never studied,
They said that Sharon
Sharoni
bragged
couldn't use any
constantly,
spells.
and that she was able to
Since
enter
2
this
days ago,
academy
all the
just because
gossip
of her
started to
looks.
sound louder.
They
2
even
days
said
ago,
that
all
because
students
Sharon
saw
was
the
only
news on the
dating
notice
and
board.
had never studied.
In the 7th grade
Sharon
classroom,
couldn't use
the
any
students are
spells.
talking about senior
Since 2
Amy
days
and the
ago,
new student
all the
dating.
gossip started to sound
The male
louder.
students feel
2
sad
days
because
ago,
they think they
all
should be
students saw the
Amy's
news on the
senior
notice board.
boyfriend.
In the 7th
They didn't
grade
expect the
classroom,
2 students
the
they were
students are
watching to
talking
become
about
a couple.
senior Amy
They
and the new
intended to
student
encourage
dating.
him,
The
but
male
suddenly
students
someone
feel
stood up
sad
and
because
asked,
they think they
"Wasn't
should
this
be
a little
Amy's senior
strange?"
boyfriend.
When asked what he
They
meant,
didn't
he
expect
said
the
he
2
was talking
students they
about
were
the new
watching to become a
students and
couple.
showing them
They
something.
intended to encourage
They
him,
realized that
but
it was the
suddenly
first
someone stood
midterm
up and
exam
asked,
scores and were
"Wasn't this a
shocked when
little
they saw the
strange?"
results.
When asked what
Sharoni
he
was
meant,
ranked last
he
and
said
got
he
a
was talking
score
about
of
the new
30 in all
students and showing
subjects,
them something.
even though she was an honor
They
student.
realized that it was
They
the
started to
first
get
midterm
suspicious
exam
because
scores
Sharoni
and
couldn't
were
even
shocked
use
when
any
they saw
spells
the
yet.
results.
Some didn't understand
Sharon
how
was
this could
ranked
happen, but
last
some said
and
that
got a score
Sharoni
of
entered
30
through
in
a
all
special
subjects,
route,
even
so he
though
said
she
it was
was an honor
clear.
student.
Sharoni only
They
relied
started
on
to
the
get
strength of her
suspicious
family,
because Sharon
entered this
couldn't even use
academy,
any spells
then
yet.
spread rumors
Some
that she
didn't
was a
understand how
genius.
this could happen.
He was sure that
But some
Sharoni
said
was
that
only
Sharoni
after a
entered
girl
through
with
a
good
special
family
route,
power.
so he said that it was clear.
They began to believe the male
Shironi
students
only
that
relied on
Shironi
the
entered
strength
the
of her
academy
family,
only to find a
entered this
boyfriend,
academy,
and felt that this
then
was
spread
unfair.
rumors that she was
They
a
became very
genius.
suspicious of
He was
Sharon,
sure that
and they said
Shironi
that
was
they would
only after
never
a girl
forgive
with good
Sharon.
family power. They
It
began
wasn't
to believe
long
the male
before
students
Sharon
that
entered the
Shironi
classroom.
entered the academy
Shironi
only
felt
to find a
strange because the
boyfriend,
classroom
and felt that this
atmosphere was
was
very
unfair.
busy.
They became
When
very
he sat down
suspicious
in
of
his chair
Shironi,
and was about
and
to
they
ask
said that they would
something,
never forgive
they avoided
Shironi.
him. There's no
It
need to
wasn't
ask
long
why their
before
attitude
Shironi
is like
entered the
this.
classroom.
The students
Shironi
would
felt
gossip as
strange
loudly
because
as
the classroom
possible until
atmosphere was
Sharon
very
could hear
busy.
them clearly.
When he sat down
He was
in his
afraid
chair
that
and was
because
about
of
to
him,
ask something,
Amy might be
they avoided
affected.
him.
And
There's no need
today,
to ask why their
Spirit
attitude
Zone
is like
training
this.
was carried out
The
according
students
to
would
the class
gossip as
schedule.
loudly as possible
The other
until
students
Shironi
felt
could hear them
disgusted
clearly.
because their Spirit
He
Zone
was
was in
afraid that
contact
because of
with
him,
Sharon's,
Amy
which
might
was
be
too
affected.
big.
And today,
After practice,
Spirit Zone training
Professor
was carried
Attila
out according
approached
to the class
Shironi and
schedule.
asked how
The other
Shironi was
students
going.
felt disgusted
Shironi also
because their
answered that the
Spirit Zone
deviate
was in
form was
contact
very
with
difficult.
Sharon's, which was
When he
too
wanted to
big.
move his Spirit Zone
After
outside his
practice,
body, it
Professor
felt like
Attila
his
approached
consciousness was
Shironi
also
and asked how
attractive.
Shironi was
Professor
going.
Attila told me it was normal.
Shironi also answered that the
Shironi's
deviate
Spirit
form
Zone
was very
convergent
difficult.
followed a natural
When he wanted
process,
to move his
so
Spirit Zone
everything
outside
would
his
gather
body,
into her
it
orb
felt
of
like his
consciousness.
consciousness was also attractive.
It's not compatible
Professor
with
Attila
deviate
told
form.
me it was normal.
That's why his Spirit
Shironi's
Zone is
Spirit
always
Zone
away from
convergent
his
followed
body.
a natural process,
Professor
so
Attila
everything
then
would gather
asked how
into
the
her
other
orb
four
of
directions
consciousness.
formation was.
It's not
Sharon
compatible
also
with
replied that he
deviant
felt that he
form.
had no
That's why his
problem with
spirit
them.
zone is always away
Hearing
from his
that,
body.
Professor Attila
Professor
also
Attila
offered
then
Sharoni
asked
to
how
practice
the
in
other
the
four
image
directions
zone.
formation was.
Sharon got
Sharoni
nervous
also
because of
replied
that.
that he felt that he had no
Because
problem with
Sharoni
them.
looked nervous,
Hearing that,
Professor Attila said that
also
Sharoni
offered
could
Sharon
try
to
another
practice in the
time.
image zone.
Because Sharon is the
Sharon
only
got nervous
student in
because of
Class
that.
7 who can use
Because
all
Sharoni
four-way
looked nervous,
formations.
Professor Attila said
Professor
that
Attila
Sharoni could
wants the
try
others to
another
follow
time.
Sharone's example.
Because Sharoni is
Sharoni is a
in
student
Class
who wants
7
to
who can
use the
all
image zone on the
four-way
first day,
formations.
but
Professor
seeing
Attila wants
Sharoni's
the others
condition
to
makes him
follow
wonder if
Sharon's
Sharoni
example.
is wary of other
Sharoni is a
students.
student who wants to
They
use
are
the
at an
image zone
age
on
where
the
their
first
emotions
day.
can get
But
out of
seeing
control,
Sharon's condition
but
makes him
Professor
wonder if
Attila
Sharon
is
is
sure
wary
that
of other
those who believe in
students.
themselves
They are at an
will
age
not
where
be
their
affected.
emotions can get out of control.
Sharoni also
But
accepted Professor
Attila is
Attila's
sure that
offer
those who believe
and
in
asked
themselves
Professor
will not be
Attila to
affected.
give her advice.
Sharoni
The other
also
7th
accepted
graders didn't
Professor
expect
Attila's
Sharon to
offer
try
and
again,
asked Professor
but they were
Attila to
sure
give her
Sharon
advice.
just wanted to brag in
The
front
other
of her
7th
boyfriend,
graders didn't
because it
expect
was the
Sharon to
only
try
thing she
again,
could do.
but they were sure
After
Sharon just
Sharon was
wanted to
ready,
brag in front of her
Professor Attila
boyfriend because it
asked
was the
Sharon
only
to
thing
show
she
the
could do.
four-way formation in turn.
After Sharoni was ready,
Being able to
Professor
use the
Attila
four-way
asked Sharon
formation
to show the
alternately
four-way
skillfully
formation in
is
turn.
one of the
Being
requirements for
able to use the
promotion.
four-way
So
formation
Sharoni thought
alternately
that if she could
skillfully
advance to
is one of
class
the
faster
requirements
because
for
of this,
promotion.
then
So
she could
Sharon
improve
thought
her
that if she could
situation by
advance to
staying
class
away from
faster
7th
because of
class.
this, then she could improve her
Sharon was the
situation by
first to
staying
issue
away
a
from
defense
7th
form.
class. Sharon
Amy
was
was
the first to
surprised
issue a
because
defense
Sharon's
form.
defense form was
Amy
much
was
stronger
surprised
than when
because
they fought
Sharon's
the Black
defense form was
Magician.
much stronger
The
than
other
when they
4th
fought
grade
the Black
students were even
Magician.
impressed by
The
Sharon's
other 4th grade
extraordinary
students were
defense
even
form.
impressed by
They
Sharon's
believed that with a
extraordinary
spirit zone
defense
like
form.
that, Sharon
They
is like
believed
a
that with a
walking
spirit zone
castle.
like that,
Sharon then
is like
showed
a
another
walking
form.
castle.
Professor
Sharon
Attila,
then showed
who
another
witnessed
form.
that thought that Sharoni
Professor
was a
Attila,
student with
who witnessed
extraordinary
that thought that
understanding.
Sharoni was a student
Her
with
ability to
extraordinary
change
understanding.
forms was much
Her
faster than
ability
that
to
of a
change
Class
forms
6
was much
student.
faster than that of a
He
Class
felt that
6
there should be
student.
no problem
He
if
felt
he
that there
raised
should be no
Sharoni to a
problem if
higher
he raised
class.
Sharon to a higher
And finally
class.
is the
And
deviant
finally
form.
is the deviant form.
Because Sharoni had not
Because
succeeded
Sharoni
in
had
doing
not
this,
succeeded in doing
she became
this,
a little
she
nervous.
became a little nervous.
But if he wanted
But
to
if
get
he wanted
advice
to get
from
advice
Professor Attila,
Attila,
then he had to show his failure.
The 5th
The 5th graders realized that Sharon wanted to try deviate form.
Usually one has to be in 5th grade in order to form
The
one.
7th grade students became increasingly
The
nervous.
The main point
was to move the center before the spirit zone disappeared
Sharon started to
beforehand.
get dizzy.
Sharoni started to get dizzy. The situation was still the same as when he was training. He was almost able to move his center, but as the zone got further away from his body, he also felt that his consciousness was also being pulled away.
Then he realized that his classmates were
starting to laugh at him.
Even though
Amy
Sharon
got
was good
confused,
earlier.
even
But
though
she got
Sharon
messed
was
up.
good earlier, but she got
He was
messed up.
confused why his spirit zone
He was
was so
confused
turbulent.
why his spirit
He
zone was
wondered
so
if Sharon was
turbulent.
having a hard time making
He
her
wondered
body
if
the
Sharon
center
was
zone.
having a hard time
He was
making
sure
her
that
body
Sharon
the
wasn't
center
someone who
zone.
would waver like that.
He was sure that
So
Sharon
he
wasn't
wondered if
someone
there
who
was
would
a
waver
problem
like
with him.
that. So he wondered
that
if there was a
time,
problem with
Sharon
him.
didn't understand why
At that
humans
time,
always
Sharon
wanted
didn't
failure to come to
understand
other
why
people.
humans always wanted
He
failure
doesn't
to come
understand
to
why
other
everyone
people.
wants him to fail.
He doesn't understand why everyone
He
wants
began
him
to
to
question
fail.
whether he deserved to be
He
in
began
this
to
place.
question whether he
But suddenly
deserved to
he
be
was
in this
surprised
place.
when he heard someone
But suddenly he
asking
was
why Sharon
surprised
even
when he
thought
heard
something
someone
strange
asking
like
why
that.
Sharon even
He
thought
told her
something
to stop
strange like
hesitating
that.
like that.
He told her to
If he
stop
wants to do
hesitating
something,
like
then
that.
just do it.
If he wants to do
The
something,
man
then
then
just
asked,
do it.
Didn't Sharoni
The
come
man
here
then
to become a
asked,
mage?
didn't Sharon come
Sharon
here to
didn't
become
know
a
who it
mage?
was, but she
Sharon didn't
decided
know
to
who it
focus
was,
herself because
but she
she came
decided to
here
focus
become a
herself
mage.
because she came here to
People
become
were
a
surprised
mage.
to see him.
People
They
were
wondering if
surprised to see
Sharon
him.
would break up first,
They were wondering if
or
Sharon
disappear
would break up
first.
first or disappear
At that
first.
very moment, Sharon
At that
shouted
very
loudly.
moment, Sharon shouted loudly.
Elsewhere, Professor Sienna reads the previous incident report. He discovered that Sharon could suppress anti-magic only with defense form.
Anti-magic is a very
And
dangerous
even people
magic.
who are experts in that field
have to use artifacts
Because of
as
this,
intermediaries.
Professor Sienna
Because of
thinks
this,
anti-magic
Professor
is very
Sienna thinks
difficult and
anti-magic
dangerous.
is very difficult
Even
and
though the
dangerous.
children might be able to
Even though
use
the children
anti-magic
might be able to
perfectly,
use
the
anti-magic
fact that
perfectly,
Sharoni could
the
win
fact that
against six
Sharoni
people
could
at
win
once
against 6
means
people
that
at once means that
Sharoni's
Sharoni's
consciousness
consciousness is much bigger than the consciousness of those 6 people.
Professor Sienna
wondered what this was called innate talent. A moment later, someone called Professor Sienna. Professor Attila came to see Professor Sienna to tell her that Sharoni managed to use a deviant form. He even told Sharoni that he had only learned the 4-way formation since last month. The separated spirit zone could function before disappearing,
though
though Shironi could only hold it for 4 seconds.
Professor Sienna was also impressed.
Professor Sienna thought as she expected. Her intuition was never
Then
wrong.
Professor Attella said to
Then
encourage
Professor
other
Attella said to
She had a
encourage other
suggestion for
students.
Professor Sienna.
She had a suggestion for Professor
Sienna
Sienna.
looked pleased.
Professor
and
Sienna
said
looked
that the two of
pleased
them
and said
seemed
that
to
the
be
two of
thinking
them
the same
seemed to be
thing.
thinking the same thing.
A few days later,
A few days later, in the 7th grade chemistry
Professor
class,
Sienna's
Professor Sienna's class finally ended.
Professor Sienna then told
Professor
him the reason
Sienna
he
then
finished
told
class
him the reason he finished class early was because he wanted to make a special announcement. So he called Sharon to stand up from his seat. Sharon had been promoted early to grade 5, so starting tomorrow he was asked to follow the class schedule and adapt to the atmosphere. The other students were surprised to hear that Sharon had been promoted to 2 classes at once. Even going up one grade usually takes 2 years. They asked how strong his family was to support him until they wanted to raise his class like that. After announcing that, Professor Attella was about to end class. But suddenly a student shouted that he didn't agree with that because going up 2 levels at once was very unnatural. Moreover, he thought it was unreasonable to promote a disciple who couldn't even cast spells. Professor Sienna had never heard of that, so he asked Sharon if it was true. The other students also looked at Sharon sharply, and Sharon answered that she couldn't cast any spells yet. Professor Sienna didn't expect it at all. Even simple spells can be learned as long as he is willing to learn them. However, Professor Attella said that 6th grade doesn't require spell evaluation, so there's no problem with this grade promotion. Another student hit the table and shouted that he couldn't accept this. He says that this is a clear act of favoritism and discrimination, and asks if Professor Sienna also said that the spirit zone is not everything in magic. He demands that if Sharon can use just one spell, then he can understand it. Other students also began to protest to Professor Sienna. There are even students who will appeal to the student council and initiate judgment. The shocked Professor Sienna thought there was something he didn't know. He also understood and said that he would hold a teacher meeting before deciding this matter properly. The disciples smiled in satisfaction at this. In his office room, Professor Sienna didn't expect the students to be angry. Rather than being rejected due to injustice, he felt they had a personal grudge against him. At that time, Maria also visited Professor Sienna. Maria, who was nervous, said that she wanted to say something about the incident earlier. Maria said that this all started a week ago. First, they completely ignore it. But since a few days ago, they were gossiping about it openly. They even interfere with the learning process. He saw the culprit provoking the others to insult Sharon. Maria was very sad because this abuse was so unfair and started to cry. Professor Sienna finally found out what happened. He also thanked Maria and said that he could hand it over to his teacher. In a book called The Grand Scholar's Talk, the psychologist Torkelin has something very valuable to say. Torkelin said everyone should get at least 6 hours of sleep. But he only slept for 4 hours when he was a student. He was also asked that meant his statement was wrong, because Torkelin managed to become a scholar even though he only slept for 4 hours. Torkelin also told the interviewer to listen to him and told him that humans as teenagers were not ordinary humans, but superhuman. Whether they sleep or not, whatever they do, doesn't matter at all. The time was past midnight. Sharon, who looked at the clock, did not expect that it was already last night. After everything was done, he greeted the other students who were still there and came back. On the way back, Sharon remembered Timurin's words that once he entered the academy, many nobles would look down on him. Even so, he asked Sharon to stay strong and continue to stay there. Because if he can do that, then his goal can definitely be achieved. Sharon made up her mind to be able to do it for the sake of the people who trusted her. No matter who stood in his way, he would definitely become a mage. After returning and cleaning herself, Sharon was surprised by the sound of people coming this late. He suspected that students from his class had come, but he was surprised when he saw that it was Professor Sienna who came. After he entered, Sharon offered him tea, but he refused. Professor Sienna told him that he actually wanted to do this earlier. But Sharon wasn't in his room. Then Professor Sienna realized after seeing Sharon's midterm exam results. When he saw Sharon's grades for the first time, he felt something was odd. Even though the values are low, all the values are very consistent. He thought that Sharon wanted to increase her knowledge in all subjects at once. Instead of chasing instant results, he prepared for his future. It's not that he can't do magic, but rather that he deliberately doesn't learn it. But Professor Sienna didn't understand why she was doing this now, and wondered if Sharon hadn't received an education when she was young. At that moment, Sharon felt a little embarrassed. Professor Sienna, who realized that, thought that during class, Sharon always paid attention to him seriously. But he feels that his true nature is that of a shy person. Professor Sienna then asked if his school life was difficult. Sharon answered that even though it was difficult, It was
She
still
also liked
fun,
learning.
and she also liked learning.
Professor Sienna then
told her that she heard Shironi's classmates were bullying her. But Shironi said that he didn't need to worry about him.
Professor Sienna offered that he could speak honestly and not be embarrassed with her.
But Shironi insisted that he was really fine.
He says even though he
can't be friends with anyone, he can't do anything about their hatred.
When asked if Shironi
didn't hold grudges against her classmates, Shirone answered of course because she was still human. But even though their relationship cannot be repaired, he doesn't want to be obsessed with it until he forgets his true self. Even though the rest of Class 7 said he was wrong, if he thought about it, there were only 40 of them. He was sure there would be people out there who could understand him. Professor Sienna finally understood what Shironi meant. He said that he would remember that for the teacher-teacher meeting later. He realized that Shirone intended to be promoted early. Therefore, during the teachers' meeting, Professor Sienna closed this announcement by saying that Shironi should be promoted early. Other teachers don't think this makes sense. They didn't expect the whole class to bully one student on the grounds that he couldn't use magic. This can happen in the lower classes. There were many children and some old students who were not talented. They thought promoting Shironi fast was the logical way out. There are even teachers who think that Shironi can graduate in the next 4 years. And for this school, the sooner Shironi graduates, the better for them. However, Professor Thad slightly disagrees with this. Hearing that, Alphas asked the reason. Professor Thad said he knew that Shironi had talent, but the problem was that Shironi couldn't use magic, and he believed that the students' demands on that could not be ignored. Professor Sienna also explained, as he said, Shirone wanted to learn all the lessons at once, so she was a little late in learning magic. So a teacher should not interfere with student learning methods. But Professor Thad replied that he did not reject his learning method. What was a problem for him was that Professor Sienna favored Shirone too much. Professor Sienna becomes irritated with Professor Thad. Professor Sienna then said that even though the other students were weaker than Shirone in terms of omnipotence, they were still ahead of her in omniscience. Such a decision would shake the spirits of the disciples. Because of that, according to him, a teacher should not devote everything to one genius. Professor Thad was annoyed because Professor Thad not only made things difficult for a talented student, but he also failed to realize that the student's anger was misplaced. The two of them started fighting as usual to make the other teachers tired. They don't understand why their personalities can be so different, and it's still a mystery to them why they can become a mage. Alpheus laughed and told everyone to sit down. He said both sides had their own perspectives and opinions. Professor Sienna's words make sense, but Professor Thad's point is also valid because it concerns the balance of this one school. And he knew that Professor Thad said that because he loved this academy so much. So they need to understand the biases that students feel, and he can also understand that. Because of that, Alphas also proposed to do something. The next morning, students flocked to check the announcement board for the advanced class. Because there were many complaints regarding the promotion decision, the school has decided that Class 7 can take the promotion exam based on the written criteria. They were surprised because if they passed, they could immediately be promoted to Class 5. But because the test material for the exam was teleportation, they panicked. Because it was a special spell for Class 5. The theory was easy, but the application was very difficult. One of them even knew that an upperclassman he knew who was practicing was hospitalized for 1 year because he made a mistake. They also think that this means they will not promote anyone because of their refusal. At that very moment, Shironi walked between them and checked the announcement. This incident, known as the Class 7 ostracism incident, had become so widespread that even the advanced classes found out about the incident. They didn't think there would still be cases like this happening. They heard they did that because Shirone couldn't use magic, but Class 7 didn't use magic, so they didn't understand why it was such a big deal. Amy was surprised to find that Shirone was being bullied. He finally understood why Shirone always avoided him. It was so he wouldn't be dragged into this problem. Sariel had heard that Class 7 was very childish, and things like this happened a lot. He also experienced something similar, but because he managed to graduate quickly, it wasn't as bad as this. Sariel was surprised when Amy suddenly left and asked her where she was going. Amy also answered that she was going to Shironi's place. Amy was annoyed that Shironi didn't tell her this. He even intended to beat the 7th grade baby. Sariel also tried to stop him by asking if it was him. Would he want the fact that he was being bullied to be discovered by someone he loved? If he interfered now, then it would only destroy his confidence. Amy finally stopped after hearing that. Then, because the exam material was teleportation, Sariel thought it would be difficult for grade 7 students to learn. Amy thought that if it was just a matter of difficulty, she thought it would be okay, but it was too dangerous for someone who had never studied magic before.
Amy thought that if it was
Sariel then suggested Amy teach her because it could also be a symbol of reconciliation. But Amy scolded him because she was sure Shironi didn't want her help. Besides, he also did not have time because he had to prepare for the exam. If Shironi can't handle this alone, he orders Sariel to tell Sharon that she is no longer worthy of being his girlfriend. At night, a person very quickly moves from one tree to another. That person is Amy. He reasoned that he did this not because he had feelings for Shironi, but because he was also involved in this problem. But he thought that was only after he forced Sharon to kneel and apologize. He was about to enter Sharon's room and ambush her and cover her mouth, but he was surprised to find that Professor Sienna was also here. Realizing that it was Amy, Professor Sienna scolded her because he suspected that Amy always met him in the middle of the night like this. Amy panicked and tried to explain that this was just a big misunderstanding. Afraid that other people could hear it, Professor Sienna told Amy to come in. Professor Sienna finally understood. He always felt strange because they rarely saw each other and were always silent. Amy hurriedly said that this was the first time coming here like this, and reasoned that Shironi said that if they met, everything would get complicated. That's why he came quietly. He then asked why Professor Sienna was here. Professor Sienna also answered that he was here to advise Shironi about the promotion exam. At that time, Sharon offered Amy some tea. At first, he thanked Shironi, but then he scolded her because he wasn't here for this. He also scolded Sharon because it was Shironi's fault that he was humiliated, and Shironi never said that he was being bullied. After the situation calmed down, Sharon didn't understand what kind of situation this really was. Amy then asked if the teleportation exam was too dangerous. Even Shironi doesn't know any magic yet. Professor Sienna answered that it was a direct decision from the principal. Although he was also worried, he was sure the principal had his own reasons. Amy wasn't surprised that the nosy principal got involved. Because they looked worried, Sharon asked if it was really that dangerous. Amy answered of course, and asked if Sharon knew that teleportation uses the light attribute. He explained that light has something called a constant speed. There is no object in this world that can exceed the speed of light. Teleportation is a spell that uses that speed to break the boundaries of time and space. Shironi also asked what he meant by the spell requiring them to turn their bodies into light. Professor Sienna added, although it sounds complicated, surprisingly, teleportation can even be done by novice students. In the theory of photonization, the speed of light can be divided into 4 categories. The speed required for teleportation is semi-light speed. That's because as long as you can comprehend 1% of the speed of light, then you can use this spell. But because of this, the photonization level can decrease, and only a small part of the body mass can remain. Shirone finally understood that instead of being easy to learn, this spell was very dangerous because it could collide with other things. Shironi finally understood why teleportation was banned in the school area. Witnessing this, Amy, who was astonished, wondered since when did the two of them get along so well. He even wondered if Professor Sienna was really someone who could be friendly like that. Then Shironi asked why they were relying on this dangerous spell as a test. When Professor Sienna was about to answer, Amy interrupted Professor Sienna and answered that they needed to prepare a place that had no obstacles at all. Shironi was confused because she wasn't sure there was such a place, but Amy told her that there was one such place, and pointed up. Sharon was confused by what Amy was pointing at, but soon he realized that the place he meant was in the air. In this school there is a place to practice teleportation. Although it hasn't been confirmed yet, in reality, that's the only place that's possible. The rule is that participants will race from one peak to another. It was true that the place had no obstacles, but Shirone was worried that if she fell, her life would be lost. It was a test where the first person to make it there wins. But for the 7th grade level, Amy doubted that anyone could finish it. Professor Sienna explained that if nothing worked, then the student who won would be the student who could teleport the furthest. The difficulty level of the training ground would be set to level 1, and there would be safeguards later so the situation would be too dangerous. But what Professor Sienna was worried about was the students themselves. If their competitive spirit is too strong, they might collide with each other. Amy was sure that Sharon would later become the target of collisions with other students. Sharon became anxious about this exam. He thought that the difficulty level of the exams was not a problem, but he hated having to face a class alone. But he hated it even more because there was the possibility that someone could get hurt. So he wasn't sure if taking the exam was the right move. Professor Sienna also apologized to Sharon because he wanted to put Sharoni in class 5 since his first entrance exam. He said his greed was the cause of all his troubles. Hearing that, Sharoni said that it wasn't Professor Sienna's fault at all. But before Sharoni could finish her words, Professor Sienna said that was why, starting from today, she wanted to teach Sharoni personally. Hearing that, Amy became irritated and asked why Professor Sienna was like that. Professor Sienna answered that it was because he felt responsible for the promotion exam being that difficult, so he planned to help as best he could. Amy also said that she couldn't do that because the situation could become more dangerous if news spread that one of the teachers on the jury taught Sharon privately. So he offered to teach Sharon. Since the difficulty level was level 1, he was confident that he could teach her. Sharon was surprised because Amy was angry with him. Professor Sienna understood what Amy meant, but he heard that Amy asked for a promotion exam to advance to the advanced class, so he asked if he could spare some time to tutor Sharon. Sharoni was surprised and impressed with Amy. The advanced class was the goal of all students who wanted to become professional majors. Their abilities in the advanced class are acknowledged to be at the semi-pro level, and if a student belongs to a prestigious academy's advanced class, then their name will be emblazoned in the Royal Magic Academy's magazine. But once these sailors enter, they have to say goodbye to the good life of school, because what awaits there is endless competition and very tough training. It was the place Amy wanted to go, who was also the first person in her class to do so. Out of curiosity, Sharoni also asked why it was so fast, because it was too early for their age. Amy certainly couldn't tell him that it was because of Sharon. Since Sharon progressed quickly, her only remaining place to escape was the advanced class. Sharon was amazed and thought that Amy was very cool because she thought that Amy was not satisfied even though she got rank 1 in the middle class. And even though it was an important time for him now, he still made time to visit her. Amy and Professor Sienna were fighting over each other for the position to teach Sharon. But because of Professor Sienna's point of saying that a professor would be more effective at teaching her, Amy was cornered. Not to be outdone, Amy told Sharon to choose between her and Professor Sienna. Sharon became nervous because of that. Amy also asked if she would prefer her boyfriend to teach her, but Sharon said that he would learn it independently and made them amazed to hear it. When Sharoni was asked if she didn't realize that this was her golden opportunity, Sharoni answered that she wanted to burden Amy and Professor Sienna. Moreover, because Amy was preparing for the exam, while Professor Sienna would be the judge for the exam, Amy also said that this was not something she could learn alone. Sharon replied by asking, wasn't that why Amy wanted to go to advanced class early? Because she couldn't survive in this place while staring at the distant sky. Amy was shaken because that wasn't the real reason. Sharon was sure Amy thought 5th grade was just a stepping stone to becoming a mage. Then Sharon assured Professor Sienna that even though she couldn't guarantee that she would pass the exam, she would try her best, and she would not regret this decision. Professor Sienna had no other choice if that was his student's wish because he wanted to respect that decision. He then said that Sharoni could come to him if she had questions about anything, because that was the right of all students. Sharoni also thanked Professor Sienna. Before she leaves, Professor Sienna warns Amy that he won't punish her this time, but he hopes she knows the consequences of entering a boys' dorm like this again. After Professor Sienna left, Amy finally felt relieved, but he realized that the atmosphere was getting awkward, so he also said goodbye. Sharoni also thanked Amy for coming all the way to her place. Amy stopped and asked Sharon to tell the truth about why he was avoiding her, because he should have said that his class was bullying him because this problem didn't just concern him. Amy then asked if it would hurt her honor. He asked this because he remembered what Sariel said. When she heard Sharoni answer that she didn't want the distance between them to grow any further, Amy coughed in surprise. But he finally realized what he meant when Sharoni said he was his goal. Sharon tells that she saw Amy's name at the top of the leaderboard. He wants to chase Amy by trying as hard as possible. But he didn't think things would turn out like this. Their situation was already awkward. So he was worried that if he told Amy that he was being bullied, then the two of them would be even more awkward with each other. Amy laughed because the reason she was more serious about studying magic was when the two of them met. He thinks that fate cannot be predicted. While walking away, he then told Sharon that if he wanted to surpass him, then stop calling him senior. Sharoni was so confused. Amy invites Sharon to compete side by side so she can see. But if Sharoni couldn't catch up with him quickly, then he would make Sharoni call him senior all his life. When Amy was about to leave, Sharoni called her Amy and made Amy surprised. Amy didn't expect him to call her name so quickly. Shironi also said that he would definitely surpass it. Amy smiled and said that it meant Shironi had to study hard to achieve that goal, because by then, she would have graduated. Amy jumped out the window. Shironi was surprised because she couldn't see him anymore. Shironi felt it was a shame that she couldn't get Amy's help, but she was sure that those people were watching her every move. So he had to do this alone, and 1 month was his preparation time for the promotion exam. The next day after class, the 7th grade students were discussing the exam that would be held. While they were talking, they saw Shironi walking by carrying so many books. Shironi sighed after bringing all the books on the table.
He did say that he would
study it alone, but the problem was the application.
In real life,
the environment in which the mage finds himself is very diverse and constantly changing. Information about terrain is crucial in teleportation. Depending on the situation, he had to really pay attention to his omnipotence and light value, and those calculations could reach the power of 10 to 20. Shironi didn't know if anyone could do such calculations, but she encouraged herself not to give up, because they couldn't possibly give them an impossible test. He remembered that Professor Sienna said that teleportation was easy to learn, but he was worried that it wouldn't apply to him because he had never studied magic before.
Shironi thought
that children from class 7 would definitely be able to graduate because they had been taught it since childhood. Because of that, he wondered whether he could make up the difference in distance. Shironi then realized that the principal had already given her the answer. In another place, a student who was learning teleportation was praised by his teacher because he could teleport perfectly. The student is Mark Slider. Mark also answered that because he was taught by an officially licensed grade 9 instructor. While wiping his sweat, Mark said that he had been worried, but it turned out it was very simple. The instructor warned that it was impossible to master the application of teleportation perfectly, but if he mastered the portion required for the exam and spent the remaining time practicing, then he could complete the exam. Mark was happy because he was sure he would succeed in moving up 2 levels quickly. He then asked what Shironi was doing. The instructor told her that Shironi seemed to be studying alone by reading books. Mark was surprised because he thought Shironi would hire an expert instructor with his connections, but he wondered how it was possible for Shironi to learn magic just from books. Shironi finally put down her pen because she had done everything she could. He spent a lot of time understanding omniscience and had memorized all the important theories. Therefore now he had to test his magic. While warming up, Shironi hoped it could be activated according to her expectations. First of all, he needed to graft the theory of photonization onto the spirit zone. The one who stood in the way between omniscience and omnipotence was him. So he had to erase himself that was in between the two. Finally, the magic started to activate, and Shironi was about to teleport. At that time, remembering Alpheus's childhood saying that no human could calculate the value of light. When a mage focuses, his mind becomes so sensitive that they can feel everything around him. Skilled mages could even feel the number of leaves on the ground far away from him. This is the extremely sensitive mindset spirit zone. Mage in this zone can feel the outside world extrasensorially and ultimately control its phenomena. You don't calculate the value, but feel it all at once. With 9 days remaining, the 7th graders are curious what happened to Shironi because her face was covered in wounds. His first attempt at teleportation failed. In order to correct that mistake, he had no other choice but to try it in person. The day goes on, and Shironi continues to train hard. On the last day, Shironi, who was very tired, asked what she should do because tomorrow was her exam day. But every time he fixes a problem, another problem will inevitably arise. But because there are no areas that need improvement, he is confident that it will now be successful. But suddenly, Shironi's vision blurred. But Shironi forced herself and tried teleportation again. Finally, he was able to speed up in an instant. He managed to teleport, but he lost his balance and fell. He felt happy because he had succeeded. He was curious about the extent of his current abilities. Shironi thought that she didn't have time to relax, and she needed to practice increasing her distance, but she lost consciousness because she was so exhausted. Morning finally arrived, and Mark was watching the view of the academy through the window. When asked how he felt, Mark answered that he felt extraordinary because today was a historic day where he would be promoted to grade 5. He was confident that he could overcome the distance of 700 meters easily. At the academy, when Maria was about to meet the teacher, someone suddenly called Maria and asked if she had chosen to withdraw from her exam. Maria was surprised to see Mark here and was curious about why he was here. A nervous Maria asked Mark if he didn't go to the training field because he was studying independently. Mark laughed and asked if he looked like a bunch of trash who had to learn to be independent. Mark then asked what Maria was doing here. Because Maria's grades were bad, he suggested that Maria also go to the training field, because seeing smart students could also be used as good learning material. As Maria reaches for the doorknob, Mark asks Maria if she thinks she's smart enough to finally learn how to complain to the teacher. A shocked Maria asks how he knew, but he realizes that he exposed himself. Mark laughed out loud because Maria was so naive even though he was only testing her a little. He then said that he had endured it so far because they were classmates. But once he became an upperclassman, he said that he wondered what bad things would happen to Maria. Hearing that made Maria tremble with fear. Mark took a deep breath and asked himself how Maria would become a mage if she was always afraid like that. He thought it was appropriate for Maria not to go to class before him, even though she was 4 years older than him. He then left, saying that he could look forward to his performance, leaving Maria shaking. Mark then entered the classroom and asked the others if everything was arranged neatly. Their plan was, once they started, 2 of them would stick with Sharon, and the rest would protect Mark. And also, there are 2 opportunities to get Sharoni disqualified. They then asked if they succeeded. Would Mark keep his promise? Mark also said that if he managed to get promoted, apart from giving them private lessons with an official mage, even if they didn't manage to graduate from this school, he would guarantee them a job. They also felt a little relieved hearing that. Mark thought that he would not accept any unexpected variables because a genuine genius could not let his guard down. On the day of the exam, the Class 7 students who weren't participating were impressed by this place. They didn't expect the audience to be much larger than they had expected, especially the upperclassmen from 5th grade. The boys from 5th grade really hoped that if a new student would join their class, then that person would be a cute girl. At this place, the Class 4 and Class 6 students, as well as the judges, had gathered. One of the teachers also fired magic into the sky to signal. Professor Attella, who saw that, also told the participants that the exam would start in 10 minutes. One of the participants asked where the bridge was, but he was surprised to find that the bridge was only as big as a rope. At that moment, Sariel, who found an ideal spot, was watching through binoculars. An exasperated Amy said she didn't have time for this and asked why she had to watch it. But Sariel replied that Amy should be cheering on her boyfriend at a time like this to win his heart. Amy was also curious if Sharoni could teleport smoothly. When Mark was warming up, he was informed that Sharoni was not here, making him surprised. At that moment, who lost consciousness in the training ground finally woke up. He panicked and shouted, asking what time it was. When Sariel said that she couldn't find Sharoni, Amy grabbed her binoculars and started looking for Sharon. He also thought that Sharoni should not fail to implement the spell. At the place where the examinees gathered, Professor Attella explained the rules. When the teacher gives the signal, run towards the cliff, and the person who can teleport the furthest will win. The examinees became nervous because they had to jump off a cliff. If they couldn't reach the other side, then they would fall into the abyss. Professor Thad also advised them to give up if they were afraid. He warned that at the Magic Academy, death was a risk that haunted them in every subject. And since this was an early promotion exam, only students with sufficient ability would advance to Class 5. Thus, he recommended taking this exam once they were confident that they could protect themselves. If their resolve was lacking, he told them to resign now. Professor Thad looked at them coldly, but in his heart he was laughing because they were so nervous. To prevent any accidents, he thought it would be better if their vigilance increased. But the most dangerous are the delinquents who just want to come in and fight. At that time, Mark wondered whether Sharoni really learned everything alone. Professor Attella finally told the examinees to line up and announced that they would start the exam. But he was stopped when he saw Sharon running. The others were also surprised when they saw Sharon. When he arrived, Sharoni, who was out of breath, asked if he could still take the exam. At that time, Sariel told Amy that she found Sharoni. Amy grabbed her binoculars and examined them. Amy then asked why Sharon was covered in wounds. He was sure that Sharoni continued to practice without safety equipment. Professor Sienna also informed the principal that Professor Attella had sent a signal, and she asked if they could delay the exam time for a moment. But Alpheus said taking care of their daily lives was the students' responsibility. So he told them to start their exams according to the schedule. Professor Attella also told all participants to prepare and informed them that the exam would start according to the initial schedule. He then told Sharon that if he wanted to withdraw, he had to tell her. Sharon was then guided by Mark's subordinates. Now their first stage has succeeded and they will make sure Sharon fails at turn 10. Sharon then focuses himself because he needs to give his all. Professor Atella then told all participants to be ready. The participants immediately took steps. As soon as they were given the signal, they immediately started running. The children had come this far after their intense training, but this was their first time encountering a space cliff like this. This was a world they had never encountered. The children could only think of one plan at the moment. They are trying to get the leading spot. Once they get the leading spot, they only need to maintain their position at the front. But Mark thought such a sprint would not guarantee success. The most important thing is the starting point of the teleportation spell, ensuring the timing is right. Then deciding on a starting point will determine victory. Even if you repeat the turn, the difference will not shrink. Of course, that is if they have the guts to do so. As they started to get closer to the cliff, they started to get scared and activated their teleportation magic. The remaining distance from the cliff was 5 meters, and everyone in front had started teleporting. At that moment, Mark's subordinate apologized for not being able to go any further and activated the teleportation. He was angry because they were cowards. At that instant, what would happen if he fell crossed his mind? He also started teleporting at a distance of 2 meters from the cliff. Mark's subordinates who followed Shironi started to get scared because Shironi was still running and teleporting. But Shironi thought it wasn't time yet, and he needed to chase them here. Everyone was surprised to see Sharon, who jumped without photonizing. A year ago at Ogun's residence, Ryan said that he had never seen a brave man like Sharon who wasn't afraid of his father, and asked Shironi if he wasn't afraid. Shironi also answered that he read from a book that fear is based on imagination. Imagine that he would die in that situation. For example, even if you jump off a cliff, you will not meet your death until your face hits the ground. That's why you should focus on the present instead of imagining the future. That way you will be able to find the solution. Ryan also asked if Shironi was stupid, making Sharon surprised. Ryan said that he would die if he fell off a cliff. Back to the present, everyone is surprised to see Sharon, who jumped without photonizing. At that time, Sharon had to keep her senses because everything would be over once her spirit zone was destroyed. He finally photonizes and starts teleporting. Mark was surprised and asked how slowly Sharon jumped until she could pass them all like that. The audience heated up when the exam started. The 5th graders who were watching were shocked to see a student who had just jumped. Even Amy and Sariel looked stunned. Amy thought Sharon's starting point was indeed too late, but she could recover from it. He believes Sharon will definitely be number 1 as long as she can be consistent. Mark was annoyed and asked where all the team members were. Even though he tried his best, Sharon was still in front of him. At the time that happened, Maria was heading somewhere. Merlang Maria. His previous performance was not as bad as this. He is often asked why his grades keep dropping. When Maria answered that the other students were bullying her, her teacher said that it was only natural that her classmates would be competitive and that everyone could hold her back from succeeding in moving up the grade. Because of that, his teacher asked how he would become a mage if he couldn't handle trivial things like that. After that, he stayed in grade 7 for 6 years. Amy doesn't like competition, but she hates bullying even more. Because of that, he decided not to let Mark be promoted. At the end of the 3rd term, the students who took the exam were divided into 3 groups. The front group is filled by Mark and Shironi's team. The middle group is 3 meters behind the front group. And behind them was the last group that used their magic earlier out of fear. At that moment, the group behind started to fall and scream for help. At that instant, the onlookers started laughing. As the judges had expected, the students who failed to overcome their fears would fall first. When they fell, they panicked so much because they didn't see any safety devices at all. But soon, the safety device activates and protects them from falling. They also became annoyed because they were not informed from the start that there was a security like this. Everyone in the final group ultimately failed. At the 200-meter point, there are many failures in the middle group. Mark, who saw that, thought that they shouldn't try this exam in the first place. But what was a problem for him was that the distance between him and Sharon was getting wider. Not only that, Sharon didn't look tired at all. He didn't understand how this was possible, because before the exam, Sharon looked like a dead person. Shironi continued to dash using her teleportation magic. Professor Atella, who witnessed it, thought that Sharon was truly talented. She also uses compulsion continuously, and Shironi's rhythm is so regular that she looks like a machine. On the other hand, Mark's rhythm was clearly starting to become irregular.
The other teachers were impressed with Professor Attella because she could detect using synesthesia from a distance like this.
Hearing that, Professor Thad thought of something and glanced at Alpheus. Sariel was surprised by Sharon forcing herself to use compulsion and wondered when she had learned such a complicated ability. Amy thought usually mages needed to learn to change their subconscious into conscious. But Sharon was different. He was curious whether Sharon could directly control his subconscious, because it's not something that can be learned.
Mark
began to think that he would soon reach his limit, so he ordered his team to start their plan.
They were surprised because starting now, it would look conspicuous.
They rushed forward and broke Sharon's rhythm. At that moment, another of Mark's subordinates appeared and intended to attack Sharon. While preparing himself to collide, he was surprised to see that Sharon was able to avoid it. But Sharon, who fell down, started to panic. Because his rhythm was disturbed, all his tiredness began to peak. He thought that he shouldn't faint and started to focus. Those who fell were surprised to see Sharon, who was able to continue. At that time, the Class 5 students felt that their movement just now was a bit strange, because someone almost hit the person in front of them. But someone said that he did it on purpose. They also asked why he knew that, and called the man Iruki. Iruki explained that one person stopped Sharon's movements, while the other person crashed into her. This tactic is very suitable for use because of the high speed resulting from teleportation and photonization. If Sharon didn't stop the rhythm, then they would all be in trouble. He then said that if it was him, he would just run away by calculating the equation. His classmates also became annoyed because Iruki was bragging. But they were sure that if Iruki could realize that, then the professors would also know about it, and thought that they might already have a plan. Mark laughed out loud because he was in the leading position. He was sure everyone would feel jealous. He was already imagining his classmates and Class 6 friends who would soon be his juniors. He truly believed that he was a genius and laughed again. At that time, Sharon thought that Mark's condition was good and believed he could reach the finish line. He thought that if he wanted to win, he had to race it immediately. If he is careless, his rhythm could be ruined. Therefore, he will increase his tempo half a beat faster than Mark.
The audience became heated
seeing Sharon, who was chasing. The 7th graders cheered Mark on to win. Amy was worried because Sharon's body was in a bad condition. But what happened next surprised Amy. As Mark was speeding, he saw something coming towards him and avoided it. The machine system, the bridge that cannot be crossed, was turned on to level 10, and everyone was shocked. Sharon was stunned when he saw the obstacles in front of him. Professor Thad immediately ran to the machine room and used teleportation magic. Professor Sienna then asked the principal to stop the exam, but there were other teachers who opposed it, because this was a promotion exam for 2 classes at once. If they cancel, the whole family will complain loudly. So he asked what they should do. Alpheus scolded him and asked him if he really asked him that. He immediately orders to cancel his exams immediately. A signal was also given to the participants that the exam had been stopped. After teleporting, Professor Thad, who noticed the signal, thought there would definitely be lots of complaints after this. He then went to the engine room and asked an employee named Brad if he was drunk again last night. When he tried to enter, he realized that the door was locked. He thought that it wasn't a mistake and started to activate his magic. But he realized there was someone at the door. Therefore, he asked the person's identity and told him to open the door if he didn't want to be blown up along with the door. Maria answered that go ahead because no one cares if she dies. Hearing the voice, Professor Thad recognized it and remembered his past. He also asked if she was Mary. He then banged on the door and warned that this was not an incident that would end with just a light sentence. Amy strongly rejected it because she believed her life was over. If Mark goes up a class, he will again have to live a very miserable life. So he thought it would make no difference if he died now. Professor Thad sighed and allowed Maria to do as she pleased. He said that if Maria didn't want to open the door, it was fine, because it wasn't a critical situation, and told her because the exam had been stopped according to her will. Mark was annoyed because he would be able to advance to a class in a little while. He thought that he needed to win now, so they couldn't dodge the outcome because he might never have another chance to finish off Sharon. They looked at each other and started racing again into the obstacle. Professor Sienna became worried, and Alpheus was shaking with anger. Alpheus was angry because he thought Sharon would be different. He thought that if Sharon made a bad decision because he was blinded by his greed, then he wouldn't be able to have a bright future. Sharon continued to shoot past the barrier. Everyone was worried because level 10 obstacles were only used by specialists. Obstacles were continuously thrown at Sharon.
Obstacles were
Sharon thought that
continuously
the
thrown
speed
at
of the
Sharon.
trap was too
Sharon
fast.
thought that the
They
speed
don't
of the
let him
trap was
avoid
too
one
fast.
trap and
They
then
don't let
figure
him
out how to
one
avoid the
trap
next
and then
one.
figure out how to avoid the
At this
next one.
rate, his mental
At this rate,
strength would be
his mental
completely
strength
drained.
would be completely
Mark
drained.
is sure they will both
Mark
be
is sure they will
eliminated,
both be
and the person
eliminated,
who can
and
reach
the
the
person who
furthest
can reach
point
the
will
furthest
win.
point will win.
Therefore, he decided to impress them
so
that he would be
recognized.
recognized.
He
He then went through this obstacle, thinking that Sharon would continue to be number 2
for the rest of his life.
life.
Sharoni suddenly
panicked.
On the other hand,
Maria asks Professor Thad what a
He
competition
thinks that
is.
competition
He
is
thinks that
bringing down
competition is
opponents
bringing
with
down
lies
opponents with
and tearing down
lies
their hopes
and tearing
until
down their
only
hopes
himself is
until
left at the
only
finish
himself
line.
is left at the finish
He asked
line.
what kind of
He
competition
asked
this
what
school
kind of
wanted.
competition this school
Professor
wanted.
Thad replied
Professor Thad replied that it was just a misunderstanding. But Maria didn't accept that
He
answer.
asked what Professor
He
Thad
asked
knew
what
as a
Professor
professor
Thad
who was
knew
labeled
as a professor who was
genius.
labeled a genius.
Maria cried and said
she followed his orders, and if he told her to hold it, he would do it too.
But this
school only admits talented students.
Professor Thad
also said that he didn't know whether Maria knew this or not, but she graduated from this academy. He told him that when he was in the graduating class, Maria was a new
He asked
student.
Maria if she still
He asked
remembered.
Maria if she still
Professor
remembered.
Thad asked Maria to
Professor
think
Thad
again
asked
whether
Maria
she
to
had
think
heard
again
rumors about a
whether she had
genius
heard
named
rumors
Thad.
about a genius named
Maria also
Thad.
thought that she had
Maria
never.
also thought that she
Professor
had
Thad
never.
said that he was always in
Professor
last place.
Thad said that he was always in last place. He was also stuck in 5th grade for 5 years. And he was also increasingly angry because his comrades in arms were able to advance to class easily. Maria couldn't believe the story. Professor Thad then laughed and told that one day he was caught by the principal and received a severe punishment.
The
principal scolded him and asked what was making him so anxious. Thad also said that Alpheus usually doesn't care about students like him, but when something like this happened, he just intervened. Alpheus then asked Thad if he knew what a mage shouldn't do. He said that it was comparing themselves with other people. Thad became annoyed because Alpheus started lecturing him. Alpheus then said, a mage is someone who erases themselves. Therefore, he advised Thad to focus on that goal. Because if he could do that, then he would be able to erase himself. If he runs while looking sideways, then he will lose his way in life. Mark confidently dashed through the obstacles, but was shocked when he saw his answer was blocked. He panicked and wondered if he would die like this. He shouted for help. Everyone was scared out of anxiety, but Sharon grabbed him and pulled him to save him. The 7th grade students were shocked and surprised at Sharoni, who saved her competitor. But that wasn't the most important thing. They were wondering how Sharoni could move like that. Mark, who was being pulled, struggled in panic. At that time, Sharoni thought that all these traps were like illusions. He must be able to analyze the pattern of traps that are being formed from a distance so that he can avoid them. First, he decided to go upstairs, but the traps followed them. The 5th grade students shouted that vertical teleportation didn't work against him and told them to dodge. Since increasing height was useless, Sharon started to think about what she should do. He then realized that he had to go back. Iruki was excited to see Sharoni's decision. Sometimes going forward is not the answer. Going back can also be an option. Since it's only been a month, but Sharoni can already be as shrewd as that. The 7th-year students who thought Sharon was just an incompetent student who entered the academy thanks to her connections started to worry that they might have misunderstood. They started cheering for Sharon. Amy and Sariel also realized that the reason why Sharon trained so hard was not to do well on the exam. Amy recalled Sharoni saying that in the end, advancing was just part of the process of becoming a mage. Amy believes Sharoni just wants to be good at magic. On the other hand, Professor Thad said competition is only a tool to speed up the pace to the finish line. It didn't matter if he walked slowly. Once they crossed the finish line, in the end, everyone would become a mage. Maria also asked if it was too late for her, but Professor Thad offers to help her and asks Maria to start gathering her courage again. Seeing this incident, Alpheus ordered the exam to continue and said that he would be responsible for everything. Sharoni, who faced so many obstacles, thought that the pitfalls felt alive. He couldn't predict it because the pattern was too messy. His position was also not good because he was trying to save Mark. Therefore, he decided to feel its overall structure first, and at the same time, focused his mind. He's done it before. The sensation was the same as when he tried deviate form. Sharoni dashed past these obstacles. The 7th grade students who watched were stunned to see it. Not only them, everyone was stunned to see it. Alpheus didn't know what he should do. The danger level increases your abilities. But usually once you feel satisfied, then you will reach your limit. But Alpheus didn't feel any satisfaction or desire from Sharoni at all.
But Alpheus
He wondered
didn't
if
feel any
Shironi didn't have a
satisfaction
limit.
or desire for
Professor
Shironi at
Attila
all.
thought that this was a
He wondered
surprising
if Shironi
event.
didn't have a limit.
He had no thoughts that disturbed
Professor
or
Attila thought
distracted
that
him.
this was a surprising
Shironi's
event.
spirit zone
He
density
had no
reaches
thoughts that disturbed or distracted
99.9%. He calculated his roots subconsciously. Professor Sienna thought that he should recognize his extraordinary talent. But this time, Chiron was in danger. On the other hand, Chiron thought the distance between the obstacles was getting narrower, leaving only 1 meter. He couldn't pass through the 10-meter space by teleporting. That meant it would break its teleportation into 10. Once it arrived at the next trap, it tried to block it from advancing in a straight line and the space was getting smaller. In that case, he would also break it down. Iruki was surprised to see that Shironi could do rainbow drop. The class was surprised to see the light being bent and asked Iruki why that was, even though light can only move straight. Iruki also explained that if you break a circle, you will get an infinite straight line. Therefore, you divide teleportation in a ratio of 1 to 1,000. They were surprised and asked how to calculate it. Iruki answered that it was not a calculation, but a feeling. In other words, an insight.
Iruki answered that
Chiron's omnipotence is extraordinary.
In other words,
they were also impressed with Shironi.
Chirone's omnipotence
After passing through the trap, Chiron was surprised to see the next obstacle. The professors were even surprised to see Dragon's Maze appear. Professor Sienna was angry and went to Professor Thad's place. At that time, Mark, who had lost his consciousness, woke up and was surprised to see that the almost devoured Dragon's Maze made him scream in fear. Chiron thought that she needed to remember the order in which this labyrinth was created and started to think about the next route. Professor Sienna finally arrived at Professor Thad's place and asked him what he was doing. Professor Thad was also confused by what was happening, but not having time, Professor Sienna told him to stop the machine now. Professor Thad was confused because the exam should have been stopped, but surprised to hear the exam had not been stopped, and Chiron and Mark were still in the exam area. He rushed to stop the machine, but suddenly Professor Attila appeared. When Chiron and Mark were in front of the Dragon's Maze, they were frightened when they saw Chironi and Mark being devoured by the Dragon's Maze. 1 minute before Professor Attila arrived, time seemed to go by very slowly for Chiron. He thinks that he should calm down as he is alive and has to think. In a split second, he discovered that there were 9 teleportations, including the exit. But he realized that he was wrong because he could not cross the path with Mark. Therefore, he had to find another way.
The others were frightened
when they saw Chiron being devoured. But Alpheus was shocked when he saw what was happening. Chiron shot past the Dragon's Maze body barrier. Everyone who watched was dumbfounded, thinking that it was impossible. Chiron finally landed in front of everyone while carrying Mark. Professor Attila, who saw that, immediately went after Professor Sienna. The exhausted Chironi wondered if he managed to pass, because he couldn't remember anything. The engine system for the bridge that cannot be crossed has finally been shut down. The 5th grade students were impressed that Chiron had successfully completed the specialist level for the advanced class. Chiron sat up and shouted that he thought he would die earlier. Sariel was truly relieved that Chironi succeeded. Even Amy thought that Chiron almost looked cool. The Class 5 students immediately surrounded Chiron and praised her. The newly arrived Professor Sienna was surprised to hear that Chiron passed successfully. He felt disappointed because he missed such an important scene because of Professor Thad's actions. Because the two of them crossed the final line at the same time, so they needed to confirm it. So Professor Sienna asked the principal to announce the end of his exams. But Alphas was silent. He asked her if she was worrying too much. He felt grateful because Chironi was willing to show them that extraordinary light. Light from the House of Milch. Professor Thad thought of the nickname for the person who created a new definition of the photon, then was awarded the Gold Circle Award by the Emperor. However, there was a spark of greed that flashed within him for a moment after seeing Chiron's extraordinary talent. Professor Thad then asked Alpheus to say something because he felt that the person who would be the future of this academy had appeared. Alpheus also remembers his past after seeing a talented student. He felt envious of Chironi's innocent aspirations regarding magic. It wasn't long before he still didn't believe in fate. His heart had not been beating this fast in decades. Alpheus then said that even though there was only one student who would pass, he appreciated all the students who had participated and announced that the student who passed the exam this time was Chiron. At that moment, Mark stepped forward. He didn't understand how that could happen. He saw it firsthand, that Chiron was a true genius. He also bowed his head and apologized to Chiron. He promises that he will bear all his mistakes. The other 7th grade students felt uncomfortable bowing their heads and admitting they were wrong.
and
They are
admitting
willing
were
to
wrong.
accept any punishment.
They are willing to accept
With a
any
cold
punishment.
gaze, Shironi said
With
that
a
they
cold
shouldn't
gaze,
regret
Sharon
those
said
words.
that they shouldn't
They were
regret
scared
those
and
words.
confirmed it.
They
They thought
scared
Sharon was very
and confirmed
scary,
it.
even though Sharon was
They thought
actually
Sharon
very
was very
tired,
scary,
so her
even
mind
though
was in a
Sharon
mess.
was actually very tired.
At that time,
So her
Amy
mind was in
asked
a mess.
Sariel to go.
At that
Sariel
time,
didn't
Amy
understand
asked
because she
Sariel
felt
to
it would be
go.
better if they accompanied
Sariel didn't
Sharon at a
understand
time like
because she
this.
felt it would be better
But
if
Amy
they
said there was no
accompanied
time
Sharon
for
at a
that.
time like this.
He thought that
But Amy
Sharon
said there was no
succeeded in
time for
proving
that.
herself.
He
So
thought
now
that
it was
Sharon
her turn.
succeeded in proving herself.
Seeing Amy
So
leaving,
now it was
Shironi
her
called
turn.
her name and stopped them.
Seeing
He then
Amy
pointed at
leaving,
Amy and said
Sharon
that he had
called her
kept his
name and
promise
stopped them.
and he would follow her
He then
soon.
pointed at Amy and said
Amy
that he
and
had kept his
Sariel were
promise and he would
shocked.
follow her soon.
Other people thought that Sharon
Amy and
saying
Sariel
Amy's
were
name was a
shocked.
code and felt
Other
very
people
jealous.
thought that Shironi saying
At that
Amy's name
moment,
was a code
Amy
and
felt
very
sorry for
jealous.
telling him to call her by
At
name.
that moment, Amy felt
What's
sorry
more,
for telling him to call
Sharon
her by
didn't even
name.
remember all this when
What's
he
more,
woke up
Sharon
later.
didn't even remember all
On the
this
other
when she
hand,
woke up later.
Professor Attila
On
felt
the other hand,
strange.
Professor
He was
Attila
sure
felt
that
strange.
synesthesia was chasing
He was sure
Shironi
that
earlier
synesthesia
and
was
wondered if
chasing
Shironi
Shironi
managed to
earlier,
escape
and
from
wondered if
him when he
Sharon
was
managed
walking
to
through the
escape from him when
Dragon's
he was
Maze
walking through
earlier.
the Dragon's Maze earlier.
A disciplinary commission meeting was held after the incident. Maria freely admitted her mistake and wanted to get the punishment she deserved. However, Sharon, Mark, and even the guard, Brad, who was asleep due to sleeping magic, announced that they did not want to see Maria punished. The other students, realizing their pathetic attitude, began to admit their mistakes. They even revealed their plan to disrupt Shironi's exam, and the situation escalated. Sharon wondered whether Mark was being responsible according to his promise at that time. Alpheus finally said that he felt Maria's situation was very unfortunate, and he had no intention of hurting anyone else.
But in accordance
with existing regulations,
they will be subject
to appropriate sanctions.
Hearing that,
Shironi
said that she would also accept
that he would also accept
because he ignored the signal indicating
that the test had stopped and continued to advance into the labyrinth.
He had no other choice but to take Mark through that dangerous obstacle.
Alpheus was acting like he was troubled too.
But Professor Thad believes the
But Professor
situation
Thad believes the situation is heading in the headmaster's favor.
The students cannot see the truth because they are blinded by their
competition, pride, and jealousy.
In order for them to become honorable
mages, they acknowledged each other's faults. Professor Thad sighed. He didn't expect that they could also teach disciples with this method. Not only that, he also always taught Professor Thad many things. The decision was finally final. The students started crying, and Mark bowed his head to Maria. Professor Sienna thought this was the first time such a decision had been made since the school was founded, that those present now will be punished. Mark and Maria received a 2-month suspension, while the other students received a 1-month suspension. And also Sharon, previously he was asked why he kept going towards his labyrinth after seeing the stop sign. The nervous Sharon answered that he didn't want to lose. The only thing on his mind was solving the maze.
Professor Sienna sighed and
thought that even though Sharon looked very docile, she actually had an aggressive side that she didn't expect.
He wondered what this
was because Shironi was a boy.
At this
time, Shironi heard a scream that screamed her name. Inside the Dragon's Maze, Sharon thought she should focus more.
He keeps deleting himself,
cutting himself into pieces. It felt like it was spreading all over the world. It becomes infinity. The dimension shattered, and Sharon fell into it. Shironi finally woke up and heard the sound of a piano. He got ready and thought that he didn't remember it at all, which made him wonder whether that obstacle was so difficult that he dreamed about it.
Then he saw the notebook
that Amy lent him. The book really helped Sharon in remembering the rules of magic. He decided to return this during their joint class later and wanted to return the favor. But he was surprised when he saw the contents of the note. In the second joint training building, Sharon came over to Amy and was greeted by Sariel and asked if she was okay. Shironi answered yes and said that he wanted to thank them. Amy was surprised when she saw Shironi carrying apples. Shironi gave the apples and said that he didn't mean to peek, but it seems he really likes apples.
But she remembered something.
Amy was confused about what Sharon meant, but she remembered something from the note. Inside the note is a scribble on an apple. He screamed as he ran away in embarrassment.
After that,
Sharon was confused why Amy was like that. After that, Amy managed to pass the entrance exam to the advanced class with ease. But it seems there is a problem that can't be solved by his thin brain. A month later, the 7th graders returned after their month-long suspension ended. They called Sharon as senior and prepared a seat for Sharon. The nervous Shironi said that they didn't have to do this every day. Shironi found it strange that in every co-ed class, the 7th-year students started setting up seats for her. Shortly after, Sariel came over to him and sat down next to him.
He said that
Because he was
also plans to
lonely
go
at
to the
Amy's
advanced
first place.
class.
He said that he also
told
plans
Sharon
to
that
go to the
initially he
advanced
wanted to
class.
graduate and then
He
live
told
a normal
Sharon
life.
that initially he
But
wanted to
after seeing
graduate
Sharon
and then
Amy,
live a
he got
normal
excited.
life. But after
He
seeing
also told her
Sharon
that
and
Amy
Amy,
seems to
he
want to
got
be a
excited.
soldier.
He also told her
Hearing
that
that,
Amy seems to want to be a
Sharon asked if it
soldier.
wasn't that dangerous,
Hearing
even
that,
though Thormia
Sharon
was
asked if
peaceful
it wasn't
now.
that dangerous,
Sariel
even though
replied that if a
Thormia
real
was
war
peaceful
really
now.
broke out,
Sariel
all the mages
replied
had
that
to
if a
join because
real
it was
war
their
really
duty.
broke out, all the
That's why
mages
they
had to
get a lot
join
of
because it was
profit
their
and
duty.
support.
That's why they get a lot
Besides
of
that,
profit
Amy
and
is
support.
quite skilled in sniping
Besides
magic.
that,
So it
Amy is
seems she
quite
will only
skilled in
participate
sniping
the
magic.
intelligence war.
So it seems she will only
Shironi also
participate in
thought
the
that was
intelligence
true.
war.
Hearing Amy's
Shironi
skills,
also thought that was true.
Shironi thought that starting
Hearing
from
Amy's
fifth grade,
skills,
he should
Shironi
start
thought
thinking
that
about
starting
his
from
career
5th
as a
grade,
mage.
he should start thinking
Because if
about
he
his
is good at
career as a
something,
mage.
it will greatly
Because if
benefit
he
him.
is good at something, it
Soon
will
someone
greatly
approached
benefit
Sharon
him.
and greeted him.
Soon someone
This
approached
friendly
Sharon
person
and
is
greeted
Need.
him. This
Di
friendly
was
person
Shironi's
is
valued
Need.
friend,
Di
as
was
she was the only
Shironi's
person who
valued
would chat
friend
with
as
him.
she was the only person who
Even
would
though his
chat with
grades
him.
are mediocre,
Even though his
he has
grades
a
are
unique
mediocre,
omnipotence
he has a
that
unique
allows him to
omnipotence
control
that
lightning.
allows him to control lightning.
Because everyone has
Because
their own
everyone has their
uniqueness.
own
Shironi
uniqueness.
thinks class
Sharon
5
thinks
is very
class
different
5
from
is
class
very
7.
different from class
And
7.
also, they are
And also, they are
more
more
mature
mature because they are the same age.
Then other classmates
Then
also
other
approached
classmates
Shironi
also
and called
approached
Shironi
Shironi
Need
and called
as
Shironi
Shironite.
and Need
They
as
came to ask
Shironite.
what they think.
They came to ask what they
He first
think.
says that he does not
He
agree
first
with
says
his
that he does not
interlocutor.
agree with his interlocutor.
Shironi got nervous
Thinking they wanted to argue.
He was worried they
would stay away from him again because they didn't understand their conversation.
But
But instead they asked who was better, Professor Sienna or Professor Attella. Shironi was stunned to hear that question. Need sighed and said, "What kind of question was that?" Shironi thought that it was good. But Need then said that he was Professor Sienna's team with a serious face. They also started the conversation of a group of young male students. When asked, Shironi became nervous. In order for his school life to run smoothly, he needs to mingle with other students. But they were both professors he greatly respected. But when Sharon was about to answer, suddenly they left Sharon while apologizing. Shironi became sad, thinking it was because she couldn't answer them. But Need answered it was because of Iruki. Iruki came up to the two of them and asked what they were discussing just now. While laughing nervously, Need replied that they were comparing who the professor was, prettier and such. Seeing that Shironi thought that Need's attitude immediately changed, he then introduced Sharon to Iruki. While shaking hands, he realized that Iruki's voice was the sound he had heard while trying to deviate form. He also thanked Iruki because thanks to him, he was able to use deviate form. Iruki then said that Shironi was a boring person, making Shironi confused. Need panicked and tried to calm the situation down, but Iruki said that was a compliment. In essence, he advised Shironi to do her best and warned that Class 5 was filled with freaks. When asked where Iruki was going, he said that he was lazy to attend magic classes. After Iruki left, Need apologized and said that he was originally a good person. He told Shironi that Iruki was honestly a genius. But the problem was that he was a genius in a strange field. Not long after, Iruki walked into the image zone. Shironi became curious about what he was going to do because the other students made a fuss seeing Iruki enter the image zone. Iruki then activated his deviate form. Sharon was impressed because his speed was so incredible. The other students were always amazed when they saw it, and they felt that no one else in this kingdom could do it apart from Iruki. Iruki then brought out a target. Professor Attella, who was teaching Class 4, was shocked and told Iruki to stop right away. Iruki ignored him and activated Ignite Magic. The other students started to run away. As soon as the magic hits the target explodes. Sharon was stunned to see this commotion. Iruki then said goodbye to Sharon, but Iruki's ear was pulled by Professor Attella and scolded. Shironi also thought that Iruki was a really eccentric person. Iruki is the strangest person in Class 5. His social skills are very low and his personality is also average. But why Iruki was branded as a genius was because he specialized in one area. Iruki is the king of calculus physics. For example, he can calculate what will happen in extreme conditions below 0 degrees or temperatures above 100 million degrees. He can also calculate the date 40,000 from now. If he wanted to, he could memorize all the numbers pi quickly. But in other fields, he was often scolded by professors. He was scolded because he answered the literature test like a math test. The professor also said that Iruki seemed to want to boast that he was a genius, but there were many things he couldn't explain with mathematics. But Iruki denied this and said everything could be explained with numbers. He then asked if he couldn't explain the world logically. Why was the world they lived in so scary? He said that the professor's face could explode at any
He said
time.
that the
For
professor's
example,
face could
an
explode
angry
at any
face is an
time.
expression of the body's
example,
chemical reaction.
An angry face
He then
is an
continued to
expression of the
explain the
body's chemical
consequences of his
reaction.
anger.
He then
The
continued to
professor
explain
finally
the
got fed up
consequences of his
and
anger.
told Haruki to get
The
out of here
professor
and gave
finally
him a
got fed up
0.
and told Haruki to
Hearing
get
that
out of here
story,
and gave him a
Shironi
0.
felt that it was extraordinary
that
because
story,
Haruki was
Shironi felt
confident
that
in
it
his
was
abilities.
extraordinary because
It's
Haruki
hard to
was
believe that
confident in
Haruki
his
is the same
abilities.
age as him.
It's hard to believe that
Need
Haruki
tells
is the
him that
same
all the
age as him.
professors tried to pay
Need
attention
tells
to
him that all the
Haruki,
professors
but
tried
everyone
to
has
pay
given up.
attention to Haruki,
But he didn't
but everyone
expect
has given
Haruki
up.
to be
But he
interested
didn't
in
expect
Shirone.
Haruki to be interested in
Shironi got a
Shirone.
little worried,
Shirone got
and
a
Need
little
also
worried,
knew
and
everything.
Need also knew everything.
At that moment, someone came running towards them. A girl asked Shirone if she wanted to join their research group. He told them that they were researching about teleportation magic materials. If there were people skilled in the field of photon magic like Shirone, he was sure their research would progress rapidly in a short amount of time. Shirone also apologized because her current grades were bad, so she needed to focus on that first. He apologized for rejecting the offer.
But the girl said that it was fine
and Shirone could join them anytime.
Watching them leave,
Need felt it was a shame since the research group was quite popular.
Shirone felt it was a shame
that her knowledge was so limited.
When Need said he was
jealous,
Shirone asked him if
he didn't have a research group.
But Need
answered that he had a research group.
Apart from that,
he is also the leader of the group. Shirone became gloomy. Seeing this, Need panicked and told him that the group was not big and that there were only 2 members. All his seniors had graduated, so he had to fill that position. Shirone was impressed that her research group also had members from the advanced class once. He was sure that if the group had members from the continuation, then the group must have been very strong back then. So he asked Need if he could see his research lab. While on the way, Need said that he thought Shirone was not interested in doing research. Shirone answered that he was interested. He was just afraid that he would become a burden if he joined a group like that. They finally arrived at Need's research group. Need told me that this place was called the Magic Storage Room, Istas. This is the warehouse where all the school's training equipment is stored. Shirone felt a little disappointed when she realized that this was a warehouse, but Need assured Shirone that even if the building was like this, the interior was very strong, and he would be surprised. They started to enter the place. At that time, Haruki wrote the calculations on the blackboard.